Good evening, folks, and welcome to a wunderbar evening. And it's going to be a wunderbar evening, because we're going to be talking about the Diglocky? I don't know. The bell. Speaking of bell, make sure you hit that bell, hit that like, all that jazz. And yeah, let's just get on with the show because it's going to be a ride. Ice cream, my lad.
What's up?
I feel like me and you are going to be asking a few questions for tonight's show.
A couple.
Yeah.
Nick,
what could it be?
How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, man. I'm very well.
You're finally doing it with Tom. We briefly talked about the bell on your show that we did on Nazi flying saucers, but now we're going to kind of talk about the bell, and I think we'll probably break off and do some other stuff, but I think with the bell, there is definitely a science behind it. And what better man to speak about the science than the alien scientist himself? I think this lad should be on Joe Rogan.
Thanks for that.
I'm just going to say that
for the introduction,
from the get-go. You should be on Joe Rogan. Why are you not on Joe Rogan already? What's going on?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It feels kind of weird how I was stuck at 99,000 subscribers on YouTube for like 2 years. And then I went on Tim Pool and it finally, like 50,000 people watching me. It finally like bumped me over that 100,000 mark. And then now I'm stuck again at like 109,000. And it's because a lot of my investigations, go into, the deep dives on this stuff. And I don't think they want a lot of this information getting out there. I think it scares a lot of them. I think the world's ready for it. Personally, I think that honesty is the best policy, and the truth just needs to come out about all of this nonsense, because so many people are going to be, so many people aren't even going to believe it if it did come out. It's just so crazy, the stuff that you do find when you start going down. They're putting out ads over in the UK telling people don't go down the rabbit hole. Don't immerse yourself. Don't try to like figure out what's going on. Just trust it from us. Just trust it from the media. Just trust it from the experts in the
BBC.
Government.
That's what they say in the UK. Speaking about trusting things, don't trust that intro, because that was not the Bell people. That was just some CGI that was very well done.
Very good.
Yeah, I when I first saw that, when I was looking for stuff to put in the intro, I was trying to find any bit of footage of the bell, and I saw this and I went, "Whoa, has somebody actually got it?" And then I'm looking and thinking, "No, that's CGI." And then there was a disclaimer that they had been built in an engine, but it was very well done. But yeah, also it flew. Did the bell fly? Do we even know what it did?
To a certain degree, yeah. I'm claiming to be no expert in this device, but there is documents to prove that, alleged device was tested at the Henge, which you saw in the intro there.
Yeah.
So we can, by all means, I'm not an expert. This really requires a scientific background knowledge to understand the whole concept of the device. But yeah, all it did was just lift up, and it just went back down again. It didn't fly and did these fantastic maneuvers. So we'll talk into it. But thanks for Jerry for coming on the show.
So sorry about that. I was connecting to a different internet, so I blipped out for a second there. Yeah, so the whole thing was like a tunnel complex, wasn't it, in eastern Poland in the mountains there? Project Riesse, it's called, RIESSE, or Riche, the giant. I think it's means in German or Polish. I'm not sure, but was this massive underground tunnel complex. So there was tons of research apparently going on with a bunch of scientists and stuff here. They had a massive power supply going to there, as they found evidence of like where the power cables would have ran in this location. So apparently, like towards the end of the war in occupied Poland, they were running this top secret experiment in the mountains there. And of course, excavating that whole they dynamited all the tunnels, shot and destroyed all the evidence. Apparently, all the scientists inside too. So if you were to excavate that, presumably some of my history might still be there. And I've seen a couple of these documentaries that came out. I guess Igor Witkowski was one of the first Polish authors to write the book on it, which started the whole thing back in the late 90s and stuff, I guess. So there's some interesting stuff there. You go back through the history. There's this guy, Henry William Wallace, not the Braveheart character, but a guy from Valley Forge, Pennsylvania during the 70s who worked for General Electric Company on a project there, researching some of these machine. He has a bunch of these patents, which you can find if you look him up in the patent office from like the 70s, all the UFO patents with what's called it's basically gravitomagnetic propulsion. It's basically you spinning around mass to create a gravitomagnetic field, in the same way that if you spin an electric charge, you get a magnetic field, or an electromagnetic field. So there's this analogy of if you take mass and you rotate enough of it fast enough, you'll get a gravitomagnetic field. And what he called it is called a kinematic effect. And that's what is said in his patents, if you look up the kinematic patents. And it's interesting that, GE did this at their Valley Forge, PA facility, which made mercury vapor light bulbs. So they had already, mercury technology at hand there, the glassware and everything, on site there to make mercury light bulbs for, mercury discharge lamps. So it was a perfect choice, It's interesting, where they choose to do classified research sometimes.
Can I, while we're on the subject of mercury, because from all the different podcasts that I've been watching over the last 2 weeks, the documentaries, looking at documents, red mercury gets brought up. Now, red mercury, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. Nobody's ever proved it. The only time when I keep thinking of red mercury, I think of the Star Trek rerun where they destroyed Spock's planet with the red mercury.
And of course, if you look it up, you'll find, they use mercury in thermometers, but then it was replaced with alcohol, which is red, the red stuff in the thermometer. So people called it red mercury, as this whole thing. But apparently, according to Edgar Fouché, he said that they doped it with, cesium, lead, and a couple other interesting elements for some reason. Which I thought was, curious, especially when lead came out with that LK99 as being, part of this maybe alleged room temperature superconductor compound, So there's of course, mercury was the first superconductor that they ever found. When they supercooled mercury, it turns into a superconductor, and that was the first superconductor that was ever discovered. So it caused quite a stir in the controversy in the community, as you can. You also, it was around the same time that superfluidity was discovered, which you had that excellent video in the intro of the fluid in that little graduated cylinder there, where the fluid turns it hits that critical temperature and turns superfluid, and it begins actually climbing the walls of the container. Because of the superfluid state, it will actually flow over the walls of the container and out. And if you put it inside of a porous, like a ceramic dish, which is porous, it will find one atom can leak out. They'll all take that path, and it will flow out through the ceramic instantly.
That's crazy.
Through like quantum tunneling. It's pretty insane stuff. So you could think that when these discoveries happened of superconductivity and superfluidity, they were the research into them was like Manhattan Project level physics. You know what I mean?
When was that, Jeremy? Like, what were the years that they were starting to discover a lot of this stuff?
Probably the 30s. It's just even before in the 1940s and stuff. This is 1920s. You had the invention of quantum mechanics, and they started kind of getting some of the understanding of the science behind how this stuff worked. and they could start figuring stuff out with it. So, and I've been talking to a couple new scientists too who are interested in, who worked on a lot of this stuff during the 70s and 80s that are now older and later in life. And we're trying to get as much information out of them as we can, because anything from the 30s is buried now. You know, all the guys from all the original Roswell witnesses died in the late 90s. I mean, they were, you know, so all the guys that are the 80 and 90-year-olds now were at their peak in the 70s and 80s. So that's where we're at now, trying to piece together that whole history. And it's crazy because a lot of these guys, you know, die with those secrets, and it never gets dead. And then the history just disappears down a black hole until, you know, whoever know how long it will take for people to find it. Sometimes it's gone forever. And, you know, we don't want things to happen like have happened in, you know, we don't have glass making technology from ancient China that we can't replicate. And there's, you know, never mind all the, you know, technologies we've lost over eons and millennia. We don't want the same thing to happen with more recent technologies. And I feel like a lot of this stuff has been buried on purpose. And there's people in the intelligence community that want this to be lost. You know, they don't want this stuff out on Joe Rogan or the mainstream. And it scares a lot of people. I think a lot of the technologies and the capabilities of merging our, you know, what we've learned from ET tech. We have crashed alien tech, which again, I don't know that we do. I never claimed that we do. I've always been interested in the stories behind that and the players that may have been involved. You know, like where would it have gone in 47 if, you know, they found a crash at Roswell, and some of the scientists involved in that stuff. That's a whole nother rabbit hole with the Battelle and the memory foil. Of course, nitinol wire was discovered in 1959, I think, 10 years after this report was written for Wright-Patterson by Battelle, by a guy named John Elroy Center, who said that he was given pieces of alien debris to work on while he was at Battelle, and his job was to come up with a way of analyzing it. And in his paper, he has a method of taking unknown samples, dissolving them in carbon tetrachloride, and measuring the off gases to see what the material is made of. So they take the like most vicious solvent that will burn it up and dissolve it into vapor, vaporize pretty much anything they put in it, and then they can measure the off gases. So they could have taken this indestructible material and been able to, you know, figure out what it was made out of in a very rudimentary and basic way. They wouldn't be able to actually tell the most important pieces of it, which they need to do SEM for. That's like the actual mechanical structure and the piecing together of this material on the nano or micro level. So that was apparently, I don't know if that's ever been done. There's no, you know, of course they've had SEM since back then. It was very expensive and stuff, but not quite as high def as they have maybe now, but they had you know, scanning electron microscopes back then. So who knows, presumably what they had, but there's guys from, it would have gone to Naval Ordnance Labs, and that's where nitinol was named after. It's Ni, nickel, Ti, titanium, Nol, N-O-L, Naval Ordnance Laboratories. That's where they named it after. So it's certainly curious, that and you know, a number of other things in the literature, which do they have, you know, there's been, it's kind of crazy, you know, 97, you had Corso, the head of Material Command, come out and say that, yeah, we have this stuff, and they've been reverse engineering it in these programs.
How much validity do you give to Corso?
I don't think he had a lot of the science right or access to any of the actual programs themselves. I don't, you know, because if you knew what was going on around those times, he just didn't have the right knowledge, and some of the things he mentioned, like, you know, fiber optics and semiconductor electronics, like the transistor, he credits, you know. And
well, can't we just go back and look at those patents though, Jeremy, and see who really created that stuff? I mean, isn't there like a paper trail back? Yeah. So
Walter Schottky is one of the main scientists who developed the whole solid state theory. It's basically group theory of quantum mechanics for semiconductors, and this theory that he came up with in the 30s, which is all traceable in the literature, and you can read up on it. This is what they were working on with the P and the N doped silicon. And, you know, it's not that hard to piece 3 pieces of this stuff together and take leads off it and make a transistor. That's all you do to make a transistor. It's not. And the thing is, what gets me is alien technology. What we're learning about alien technology now is that it uses photonics. It's this realm where the electron meets light. So they're pushing electrons around using light in a very different way, which is much more efficient photonics than electronics. So, you know, your battery life is going to actually just producing computational power rather than just waste heat energy that you get from the resistivity of pushing all those electrons around your circuits and all the wires, because light can travel through these materials at the speed of light with no resistance. So you don't have the same losses as you do in electronics. So it doesn't make sense that alien technology would be based on electronics. It would be all photonics. It would be like, you'd be looking at this stuff trying to figure out how it worked, but if you didn't have a way to look into the innate structure of how all the pieces are put together and way that light's traveling and bouncing around in all these crystals on the nano level, you're never going to understand how that technology works. So you think about how people must have looked at this stuff in 1947 and been like, you know, just
I mean, does that change the materials though? I mean, as far as like metamaterials, I mean, for that, if you're working with photons like that, how does that change? Like what metal changes do you need at that point? Like, how does that interact?
Well, that's when you get into a whole different, you know, as Gary Nolan talks about, right? We're building with 92 elements basically is what you can work with on the periodic table, but they're dealing with all the isotopes. So you add a little bit of a neutron to this one to make it slightly heavier. So now its quantum process is a little different than its neighbor. And what does that do to the quantum interaction of the entanglement of the photons as it travels along that network inside of that material? And it does a lot of interesting things. So when you're building with 254 building blocks instead of 92, you can build a lot more things. So that's, if people want to look that up, it's called the table of nuclides, NuClides, and that's the expanded period. That's the big periodic table. So
I did hear something mentioned on, I can't remember the name of the podcast, but one of the hosts of the podcast said that it's crazy that what the scientists could get away with, Nazi scientists, because there was no holes barred, because literally if you've got human beings that you can mess around with, because you've got people that you've got in concentration camps and you can just literally do anything. So the advancements they would have got from that alone, for the fact that they just didn't care and they could just do what they wanted with these people. It makes me wonder, like, is that how they got so far ahead? But also there's the question, well, it's not even a question. We know the Nazis went to Antarctica.
So the Nazi that was in charge of that is Hubertus Strughold. Hubertus Strughold, Hubbertus, Strughold with 2 G's. And if you look him up, he's the guy that ran all the altitude high altitude chamber tests for the Nazis. So they got all the high altitude data on how what kind of pressures the human body could take and what would happen, during rapid depressurization, things like that, so it's horrific what they did.
How they found that out. Horrific how they,
that's crazy.
Because they would pressurize you, then rapid decompression, so just like you'd hemorrhage from every surface of your body because your blood would boil, because it lowers the boiling point of your blood to like regular room temperature at those pressures. So like your blood just boils in your body. They're just horrible things. And they had all the data on this. And yeah, that of course went to the U.S. Army Medical Labs at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base when it was brought over here from Operation Paperclip.
I was just going to say that. I wonder how much Paperclip really, they just said they did all this horrific stuff. You know, why don't we just take advantage of what they knew? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we kept him here and we protected him. I mean, all these other war criminals who did these horrible things, Mengele and other doctors, you know, they faced the Nuremberg trials and the electric chair and hanging or whatever, the death penalty for a lot of them. So we brought them here and we protected a lot of them, and they helped form our space program. They helped form the NSA. They helped form our CIA. They helped form our intelligence agencies, and everything that we're now having to face the consequences of. You know,
if you can really look into like the Nazis, and especially Operation Paperclip, because I've been looking into the Nazi connection and JFK assassination, and it's like, whoa. It gets bloody deep, and
with Harold Byrd, the school book depository, and his uncle and Admiral Byrd, and then the whole secret aerospace. It's crazy. The secret aerospace elements into that is there's a lot we're going to learn. It's so connected. It's so deeply connected, and people think, oh, this is just you're going down the rabbit hole and all these conspiracies and stuff. It's like you don't even.
Look into it.
You wish it was as simple as they try to make it out.
Well, we spoke, Nick, about when we were talking about, we did the show on Nazi UFOs, and you know, you believe that they were doing stuff with UFOs, but that was all kind of like nuts and bolts. It was propeller driven and all that jazz. The Bell, it seems, and from somebody who's just tried to research it over the last couple of weeks, to find anything on it is extremely hard.
It's difficult.
I mean, like for yourself and Jeremy, I don't know how much you've looked into it, Ice Cream, but do you guys think that thing actually existed?
Yeah, well, first of all, straight off the bat, Haunebu flying saucers, the real flying saucers, those were invented by neo-Nazis. They didn't exist, because if they would have invented them, they would have won the war. We would be speaking German. So I'm ruling out those concepts of flying saucers, those anti-gravity flying saucers. But when it comes to the Bell project itself, Jeremy, you mentioned Igor Wachowski's book. This is it here. Fantastic book. And he's the guy who's done the research. He's got the documents to suggest that they were working on this device. Let me just tell you where the story of the Bell came from. Igor Wachowski, he broke the story back in the 90s. The story came from a Polish post-wartime trial of a SS general called Jakub Sporenberg. He was involved for the execution of 60 scientists that was given the order by Hans Kammler. And after the war, this is a year after the war, he was in prison. He was in the Polish prison, and he would not talk. He would not talk until he eventually spilled the beans, and he talked about the Bell project, the device. Now, he signed an affidavit, which means it was he wrote his accounts out, but his accounts has not been published. This is it. Igor Wachowski is just basically put in bits of details into his book. So what Igor's done, he's gone out and he's looked for documents in the German and Polish archives to look to see if there was any scientist involved in this sort of device, the Bell project, basically. And he has found some very compelling documents to suggest that they were working on some sort of device. It's very sketchy, but he's done a fantastic job. I can't tell this enough. Get this book, guys, because he's really broken it all down. So my opinion, yes, they did work on this sort of rotation mercury-based plasma. That's my own opinion, but it didn't fly about like they say, because it produces a lot of background radiation. I mean, we'll break it all down, but that is the basics of where the story came from.
So Jeremy, on the back of that, what do you think it was? If that thing existed, what do you think it was for?
That book was published. And then another bunch of, Joseph Farrell's done another number of books on this too, right? So he's
Yeah.
He speaks German, so he's able to translate a lot of those documents too.
He's got them all, man. He's got every book.
I've got all the books. I've got everything here.
Those ones were published a little bit later, so those are going to be more updated kind of analyses and breakdown of some of these scientists and the information. As far as the scientists go, you know, there's some validity to this whole torsion twister theory with Einstein-Cartan that they were working on, and then that may have been related to what they were researching with this this device. As far as that goes, but I haven't found it's just curious because it seems like, wouldn't Paperclip have like discovered this you know, this technology too, if in the course of their intelligence investigation into Wunderwaffe and anything exotic or crazy that the Nazis were working on? That was their job as the intelligence agency. So obviously they would have picked up on this. But where's the strong evidence for intelligence agency replication? Because if this was, you know, late 1940s, right? We don't see them replicating this stuff until like 1970s with the Henry William Wallace stuff that, you know, that GE looks like it funded, and it doesn't really seem like it went anywhere. But it would just seems to me that they would have done more to research this. There'd be something in the 50s or, you know, early 50s. We'd see some kind of replication project for a US version of this. And where did that take place? Well, it's interesting that the later thing happened in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, because where, of course, did the Kecksburg crash?
Yeah.
In Kecksburg,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
So,
Yeah.
it's certainly curious. But again, I've hit a dead end with the research that I've been able to do, and it's been so long now that something that like that could have been sufficiently covered up by now. So it's like you wouldn't find much of a trace of it unless someone gets a hold of, you know, Henry William Wallace's, you know, granddaughter or something, and she has, oh, this is a case of my, you know, I've saved it all these years. You know,
I tell you what I've got this week from listen. I don't even know how many I've listened to, and little mini documentaries I've watched, and read a few articles here and there. Well, Google's read them to me. But I've had Time Machine. I've had a
Project Kronos, right? Yes,
a weapon.
Well, the thing about the time machines, right? Stephen Hawking put that one to bed in the 90s. He wrote a whole paper with a conjecture on why time travel from the future is impossible. And to prove his thesis, he hosted a party for time travelers, and he didn't announce the invitation to the party until after it had already happened, and no one showed up. And then you get to the Fermi paradox with time travelers. It's the same thing as aliens, only a little more difficult to deal with. But I mean, I'm sure time travels from the future. If they wanted to prove it, they would have shown up to Stephen Hawking's party. I mean,
yeah, I just feel like Germany probably would have won the war, right? I mean, I've heard a lot, and I've seen like things here or there about the Nazi UFO program, but I've never really given it too much validity because they lost. I mean, plus I think a lot of it's supposed to have been from giving down information from extraterrestrials, if I'm right. The little bit that was like kind of passed down info, and I don't know. The whole thing is just, there's a lot of speculation for it. I don't see a whole lot of proof, you know, that it's there. So yeah, I just never really gave too much of a look at it past that, you know.
Are we saying Germany lost though? Or are we saying the Nazis lost?
Well, no, the Nazis kind of won because they were employed and they went everywhere. Went to South America, Latin America. They went everywhere. Honestly,
yeah, that's my point. There, Nick.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So my estimation, what I say, what Lee's saying, not what Dave's saying. They won, but the people that were very high up in the SS, you know, these were generals and stuff like that. They went away and they were employed by America, all around the world. So in that aspect, yes, they sort of won, but it wasn't actually declared that they've lost the war. There was no treaty signed or anything like that. You know, it was just like, right this way to America. You know, it was over like 1,600 scientists. it's just like it baffles me, you know, how America doesn't really know about this, you know. So
well, it's kind of like when you conquer something, you know, you take the spoils of war. I mean, that's kind of surrender. I mean, you lost, and when you do that, right? I mean, that's the way that I take it. You know, I don't think they're going over there because they wanted to come to America. They probably didn't. You know, they probably wanted to stay home. So I figure that's command and conquer. You know?
Yeah, but you look when he went into America, they had new visas. I mean, one of them had to be sent back to America because someone in the Nuremberg trials spotted him and was like, "Yep, you were in part of the concentration camp." I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he had to be sent back. So there's a whole lot of controversy behind it. So yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole, man.
They found that one photo album that the lady had with her aunt was apparently like a concentration camp guard at Auschwitz, and she had like the photo album, and they used the photo album to identify Mengele and like all the guards. And
yes, I remember that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
look
that's
at
what I've always
Braun.
wondered. Like, that's also kind of what I wondered too. I mean, a lot of people talk about. I know Tom DeLonge is really big on Roswell being a German or Nazi craft. I mean, what does everybody think about that? I mean, do we think that was ET, or do we think it was German technology that crashed?
Oh, that's a whole new episode, man.
It was Harlequin babies, right? They just looked like aliens.
I've always thought that was.
That was Annie Jacobson's, right? She forwarded that theory in her book on this whole subject.
Well, she said it was. She thought it was a
German craft, right? It was I was going to
say Joseph P.
But it was sent over here to spoof us because they put Harlequin babies in there to make it look like aliens and screw with us.
I've never heard that theory, man. But I'll tell you what, Joseph P. Farrell, who wrote these books about the Bell, he's wrote a book called Roswell and the Reich, and he's the one that's got great detail saying that whatever crashed at Roswell was German. And he's got a document in here that it's complicated, man. We'll have to dedicate a whole episode to it. I can't explain it in a minute, but it's immensely fascinating. But
you're on Ice Cream Show tomorrow, so you better do that there.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I got something special for you Ice Cream tomorrow.
I'm excited. We're all excited. Yeah.
So yeah, that requires a whole new episode talking about Nazi. Whatever crashed in Roswell was Nazi related, but they had the technology, the aircraft, you know. Talking about books, I'll grab a book out in a minute. But what the Germans were developing when it comes to aircraft is fucking mind-boggling. It is unbelievable what they managed to do. I mean, it's crazy.
It's interesting. Some of the original descriptions, like Kenneth Arnold's description of the flying saucers, look a lot like the Horton parabola. If you want to bring up a picture of the Horton parabola.
Yeah, is that the Horton wing? The same thing?
So the Horton brothers developed a whole bunch of wing aircraft and different models of different types of flying wings and stuff.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of them in the intro.
Yeah, they didn't have a vertical stabilizer or a fuselage, so it really limited the reflective surface for radar imaging. So they're naturally super stealthy, just from the shape of the airframe. But there was this one called the Horton parabola that looks just so much like what Kenneth Arnold drew and described in his descriptions of these craft. So yeah, it's definitely, I definitely wouldn't rule it out completely. I would put that as much more plausible than the Project Mogul weather balloon theory. It's obvious that they floated that around as a cover story. Numerous witnesses who saw it said that, it's like that we didn't just mistake what we saw out there for a weather balloon. So,
well, the weird thing is they come out, they change the story to a weather balloon, and then later on they say, well, we made it a weather balloon story to cover for another weather balloon story. That always seemed weird to me,
Yeah. Well, it's a much bigger weather balloon. There were trains of huge weather balloons that they used, right? With crash test dummies that they put on them to monitor what would happen to people who fell from these balloons. Yeah, come on, guy. But yeah, some of that stuff, Alvarez was, he was one of the scientists who worked on all those, a lot of those top secret projects, during the 40s and stuff, Luis Alvarez. And he was part of Project Blue Book also later, and was one of the like guys who was just virally against UFOs and any aliens and any stuff like that, any of those theories. And the way he viewed it is that the public was giving credit to aliens for all this top secret technology that he worked on. He's like, guys, I built all this stuff, and you guys think it's aliens. It's like he was just pissed that aliens were getting the credit for all his work.
So going back to German aircraft, this book here called German Jet Genius, it shows you every single aircraft they built, and it is unbelievable. What was it called, Jeremy? That aircraft, the Horton aircraft.
Parabola.
And that's what Kenneth Arnold more or less saw.
Yeah, it could have been the Roswell crash too. Look, it looks a lot like a saucer almost.
Is that the fuselage bit that looks like the saucer? Like if you take the wings off it.
Parabola. I'm just gonna Jamie it for us real quick.
Jeremy it.
Let me Jeremy it. Oh, there we go. How do I present? All right, present.
We need a Jeremy. Jamie.
Yes, fantastic.
That's it too. Let's see if we can share that up. Bring this.
You sent that to me.
I'm sharing the screen now. You gotta.
Oh yeah. Got you.
StreamYard and bring it up, man. So yeah, this is it.
That's it. Yeah.
Another photo of it from the side. I guess these were lost in a fire. But these were the captured.
Chestnut.
This was actually, you can see the swastika on the vertical stabilizer.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
This thing was captured. You know, they didn't just capture scientists and bring them back. They got everything, man. Yeah, this thing is
very much like it, isn't it? Very much like it.
It looks like a saucer, man. Look at the curvature. It looks like half of a saucer. And if this thing was broken and exploded in wreckage, you'd think that it was just a piece of a bigger, disc.
Sure, it sure does, dude. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you wonder. I don't know. I mean, I know obviously Germany and the Nazi regime was very, very advanced at the time, and everything aeronautical like that. I mean, how advanced do you think that they really were? I mean, did they have potential to make something like that could get here? I mean, is there really Bell potential at that point?
The thing that I'm worried about, right? The only thing that was able to travel that far at the time was probably like a B-2 bomber. It was designed for really long range transportation and mission. But as far as this goes, I don't know. The thing that always gets me is the description of that metal foil that would, be mirror smooth and you couldn't break it or tear it and stuff. I want to know what that material was. And it almost seems like Mylar, but Mylar wasn't invented until a couple of years after Roswell.
Well, Battelle got that material though, right? Is that the idea? Apparently.
Yeah. Apparently it went to Wright-Patterson, and from there we have the progress report saying that Battelle did some kind of research on something. And you have the guy who wrote that paper on that method, John Elroy Center, saying that, he was given materials that he thought were alien technology and told to reverse engineer this stuff. So that I wonder about. Maybe that was all made up. Maybe that was the Lou Elizondo of the day, or I don't know, the guy that pretends to be the cover of, I don't know. They do a lot of disinformation. Lou was probably not a bad example. Maybe the Richard Doty, a Richard Doty type, because Lou's caused a lot of controversy, but he's debatable in a lot of ways. But again, the whole TTSA thing, man, it really took a lot of people for a ride. And then we know that counterintelligence people have infiltrated movements like this. So when I see a guy whose background is in counterintelligence, it kind of. Did you guys see the new thing with Jeremy McGowan too? I guess Jeremy McGowan did an interview because he got in the Elizondo camp. He was at Elizondo's house and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
him
yeah,
and
yeah,
got
yeah, 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 yeah,
entry with
yeah,
him and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
He says that he overheard like Elizondo's wife, you know, asking him about like complaining about money and when they were going to get more money for what
Yeah, I
they were
remember that.
doing and stuff, and saying that something about a yeomanship, which means like that's like Navy kind of intelligence thing, you know. So he suspected that something weird was going on, and then Lou was trying to fake him out on the remote viewing abilities, like that he had remote viewing abilities and stuff, and that's when he's like got all sketched out by the whole thing and kind of backed out of it. But yeah, I don't know about all that stuff because they're mixing. They got like Hal Puthoff as their main scientist, and they're putting a lot of that, you know, other stuff and trying to mix it all in. You know, and they got Skinwalker Ranch mixed in with all this stuff. It's like,
yeah, I mean, with Hal Puthoff, I mean, he's been around a long time, and you've seen, like, people think he's just all of a sudden showed up, but he's been around for quite some time. And if you look back, you can see a young Hal Puthoff in some documentaries. But like the whole remote viewing thing, a lot of people like disregard him because of that. But there is some evidence there to say that it's possible to remote view. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, boys, but you know, I've had somebody on the show that's been to the Monroe Institute and studied there, and they say they say it's the thing. You can do it.
I mean, anybody who like, this is my issue with Hal Puthoff is that, I mean, he thinks Uri Geller is like legitimate, and like we've known for like a long time
that guy can bend spoons. Come on.
I mean, the Amazing Randy put that guy out of business to me in the 70s, man. I don't know how he's still such a topic of conversation for anything like that. And then Hal goes where the money goes, and that's, you know, I don't mean to kind of go off onto something else here, but I mean, Jesse Michaels, I know he just did that interview on Toe. And he was talking about how, you know, he talked to Puthoff, and they asked him, well, how did you run into him? And he goes, well, you know, I just kind of hit the guy up. It was a cold call, but he kind of knew I was in venture capital, and then maybe there was some money there. And I'm like, well, that's probably why he talked to you. I mean, everywhere he goes, Fugel, Bigelow, he's TTSA, he's wherever the money goes, Hal is, you know?
Yeah, interesting, because this is a scientist who was associated with Uri Geller. He's known as the person who brought Uri Geller and Dutch-born Peter Hurkos to the United States for scientific investigation, right? So he's the one that brought these guys, Uri Geller, to the United States so that they could investigate him, and Hal Puthoff was, you know, part of that investigation and stuff. Now, what's interesting about Andrija Puharek, right, is that he was a physician, and he has a patent on a radio transceiver that can be put inside of a tooth. And what's interesting is Uri Geller may have gotten dental work done by Puharek, and they were really surprised by how Uri Geller was getting, you know, hot. He's getting all these hits, you know, like how are they able to do this, you know? And well, it turns out that he had a transceiver in his tooth that was, he could beam them, he could like basically radio him, like, and it was enough that you could hear it. You wouldn't be able to hear it audibly, but I mean, inside your skull like that, it's vibrating just enough that you can hear it inside your hearing.
Like a Peter Popoff kind of guy, you know?
Right,
Same
like a
idea.
Peter Popoff kind of, same exact idea. Yep. Now, he was the odds? This is the guy who brings Uri Geller to the United States, and he's got a patent for this little device.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I never knew that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
I never
when I
heard
learned
that.
that about the Uri Geller thing, it was like, oh, so that's how they fucking fooled Hal Puthoff. Oh, yeah, a lot of people would have been fooled by that back in the 70s, dude, you know? So, yeah, I guess he couldn't repeat it under certain conditions. Like they put a loud white noise in the background and he was having trouble. Like, he's like, I can't concentrate.
Yeah, and then I
So,
can't remember what late night show he was on, but he went on there and he used to move all those metal objects. He could sense all of them. And then the amazing Randy, that magician who offered like $1 million, I think it was, to anybody who could prove the telepathy or any kind of psychic ability. He went backstage just before Uri Geller went out and actually switched all the metal out. And then that was when Geller got on stage and was like, I don't know, I don't feel it tonight. I'm not feeling it. And he couldn't move it. And so the jig was kind of up at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's certain things that they did to trick people. It's a magician running sleight of hand operations, and then of course, the CIA wanted people to believe that they had this mind reading technology and remote viewing technology. They want the Russians to believe that. They wanted all these people to believe it, so that they still promote that to this day. They still try to convince people that stuff's real, and I don't believe it one bit.
I don't either. Yeah.
Because the CIA and the intelligence agencies don't use remote viewers. They don't train remote viewers. They train intelligence collection spies that are trained in a different set of skills, for actual reliable and verifiable intelligence gathering. Because if someone's just seeing it inside their head, that it's a lot less reliable than a photograph or a document or a dossier or video or like all these other things that you can get through intelligence collection. And not to say that some people say, oh, they use both of them in conjunction to see, to make confirmations and stuff, but there's no evidence. They put out this statistician that did a real good job saying, that oh, this is the study that I see cited by a lot of people about Jessica Utz is the name of the scientist there. And she did a study on she's like a statistician, but these other guys did another study which responded to her report. And I have to find that, what that's called. I posted a while about this on some of my remote viewing posts on Twitter. If you guys go back to them, you'll probably find this.
Yeah, let me know if you find it. I'll just pop it back up on screen, mate.
But so SRI did these remote viewing studies, and then this other organization, SAIC, did these remote viewing studies. And I go into a whole bunch of weird rabbit hole on SAIC and some of the stuff that they've been involved in and were involved in 1996 to 2001, and then after 9/11, because SAIC had a lot to do with writing the NIST report. They had a lot to do with some of the other things involved with all that funny business. The SAC is now Leidos Corporation, of course, and Leidos makes all the people scanners that were sold. Billions and billions of dollars of these were sold to every airport on the planet after 9/11. So
yeah, seen your video talk about they were security, right? Like they ran the security for the towers and everything else.
Yeah, the guy who ran
it. Yeah.
He's now vice president. Yeah,
God almighty.
It's just a weird rabbit hole to go down with all that stuff. But yeah. Maybe someone there did have some remote viewing abilities in order to foresee that, or maybe it's just a CIA operation, because this SAIC organization is very interesting. You look at the history and what did they do before 1996? That remote viewing study. I can't find anything. I can't really find anything that they actually did. And it looks like one of these CIA front organizations, and it could be one of the, people were saying, oh, this could be one of the container organizations for the UFO file, because it, started in 1961 or something. And, there's a lot of these organizations that you have to look around the 60s at that time, because, this is, they had to, I think a lot of stuff moved to Area 51 when they opened that up. I think Area 51 was probably used for a lot of, there's a full foreign technology division out there. They were flying captured Russian MiGs out of Area 51 and trying to test out their abilities and stuff. So, you got to think they've had so many years of stovepiping and moving this thing around. If they do have a blue room, Senator Barry Goldwater was going after there. There's apparently a room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base called the Blue Room, and everything's painted blue in there, and that's no one's allowed in that building, even if there's a fire or an alarm or anything.
It must be. It's probably painted blue just to stop the the direct energy weapons from.
There's something, yeah, like what's with the blue paint. Well, I talk about the paint that they had on the stealth bombers and stuff, and how they used barium titanate in the paint because it's a ferroelectric and has radar absorbent and reflective properties. So that's what's in the paint, the black paint that they super expensive, and then they burned it in burn pits out at Area 51, and all those guys got sick. To
go back to the bell and what we've heard a lot about there's a name that comes up in UFO history, and that is it's a good band, the Foo Fighters.
Yeah,
and people have mentioned a few times links to these showing up after the bell, like these were not aliens, but this is some sort of tech that was sent up to kind of like mess around with the engines of these planes to fuck them up, stop them doing the job. And I'm just wondering if you guys think there's any relation there to. Do you think that was German? Do you think that was German tech at the time, or do you think that was what we're essentially pilots are reporting right now?
I'm not sure. I think this is a good question for Nick. I mean, I guess kind of what you're asking is what is the Nazi kind of perspective of the phenomena too? I mean, if it's not their technology at the time, right? Am I on the same track with you there? Like,
this is a complicated one because there's not a lot of evidence to go by. I mean, we're talking about Foo Fighters, the balls of light that will track Allied aircraft. They'll like to sit on the end of the wings and all that.
yeah.
What I was going to do, Ice Cream, I was going to show a document that suggests that these balls of light were German, and someone that immigrated to America. I have to find a document here, and he actually breaks it down of what these things were. And he actually gives the fuel mixture for these devices. And he says, no, these things were circular disc shaped, and one of these objects was actually downed an American bomber near the end of the war. So it's very sketchy. I'm going to break it all down for you tomorrow. So there is some.
Yeah, I'm trying not to ask too many questions, but
no, man, that's cool, man.
mean,
But it's just not a lot to go by. I mean, the idea of German Foo Fighters is that they send these probes up and they'll give off a stronger magnetic field, and it'll disrupt the cockpit's recordings, causing the aircraft to crash. So instead of shooting these things out from the ground, you just send these probes up. So there are some sort of documents to suggest yes, possibly, but not a lot to go by. But they would have used these probes, if they would have perfected it, and these scientists who went from Publish Paperclip to America, they would have perfected. This is pretty good technology to use, but
I was just thinking in that Command and Conquer Red Alert game, how you could play as the Nazis and you could build the Tesla towers, like the Tesla coils as your defense mechanism. And I always wondered if you had
that was the best team to play back then. When you played that. Yeah.
So I was just wondering if
I think were they called Nord? I don't know if they were instead of Nazi, they were called the Nord or whatever. Or was that June? I don't know. Yeah. I think it was.
I'm vaguely recalling. It's been quite a while, a number of years, but
great game.
The whole idea, I wonder if you had a big enough Tesla coil or a Van de Graaff generator, any kind of like static electric field high enough, if it would cause like plasmids or plasmoids, to form on like the wing structures, because it tends to. These things were reported in areas where you have the highest vortex shedding or turbulence on the aircraft of the flow. But why is this just is this ball lightning? Like a ball lightning is an example of a plasmoid, and there might be more technology than we're aware of for how to actually produce these things. Again, this is a matter of just someone figuring this out and running enough experiments on it. But
somebody said this on a podcast that had absolutely no knowledge, and it was just like a little bit of they had the somebody talking about the bell, and it was just an idea in his head, and he's like, so the Foo Fighters started showing up probably around about that type of that time. What if the bell? He said, "What do you think that had something to do with the bell?" And then I was thinking about some of the images that I've seen of the bell being held by chains, artist impressions, and it rising up off the ground. And I'm wondering if, this question is probably for you, Jeremy, because it's about the science involved, and you mentioned Tesla coils there. If you would it be would there be a device possible to get a device that is portable, that could harness enough energy that could essentially send something up into the sky? Because if it's just going to be over one area, you don't know how much radius that has got. But if you've got essentially this object of mass power that you could take it out on a ship, whatever, and it essentially could send up something that would interfere with aircraft. Is that something that is plausible?
They had like the Klystron, for example, was the early way they used to detect submarines from aircraft. So they had the Klystron on the airplanes, and that was how they used to collect submarine data. But the laser wasn't invented until late 50s, 60s. So
I'm talking hypothetically speaking here. Like
I'm just trying to go over all the technology, hypothetically of what it could be, and you look at the development of these technologies. There's not much that existed 1945, technology that we know of. Right. Yeah. I don't think they had lasers. It's unlikely. It's very unlikely. But they might have had, like I said, like there might be some. No one's done an experiment with a super high voltage, Tesla coil or a Marx generator and flying an airplane through it, or just using a wind tunnel for turbulence with those kinds of voltages to see. I know there's probably data on that stuff. I know, Townsend Brown and stuff did a lot of wind tunnel tests with Bonson Labs in the 50s. Bonson Labs, BAHNSON. But is there strong evidence of plasmoid formation or ball lightning? Like I know Eric Davis wrote a paper on ball lightning, but no one has come up with.
Is it possible to control?
Yeah, no one's been able to show there'd be if it was, there'd be Styropyro and a whole bunch of other YouTubers, backyard scientists making this and showing us how to do it. Like all those guys would be on that if there was a way to make and control ball lightning. You don't think every one of these guys would? I mean, yeah,
but that would be a good weapon if you could control ball lightning.
Absolutely. But we have the talking plasma balls, right? Pentagon talking plasma balls, but those are a laser. You take the two beams of the laser and you cross them and they create a spark gap in the air, and you can create light in the air. But that technology didn't, again, lasers and the stuff to do that. The best thing we had was the Klystron, and even like a super high powered Klystron, I don't think you'd be able to do that with, you know what I mean? It's I don't know. I've been down this rabbit hole with a bunch of scientists trying to, knock their brains together for answers on this stuff. And, do
we have a logic explanation for this, for the actual hinge? I've heard people say like the bottom of a cooling tower. I've looked at the bottom. I live near cooling towers that have been up for fucking years. It looks too small.
Well, what's underneath there? If you go underneath, there's a massive tunnel system, like Jeremy mentioned. There's a whole place that's blocked off. You can't even go down. Look,
right. Well,
I tell you what,
in the middle, there was a shot. You had a shot looking straight down into that.
Yeah, I'll bring it up, Jeremy.
Bring that shot up where you can actually see, because it looks like It looks like where the pipe, you know, normally in a water tower, you have that central pipe coming down in a column going straight into the ground there. And it looks like there's a place, you know, right there in the middle. Yeah.
Looks like they're making s'mores with it nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that looks like it went into a pipe, and then you'd have to see where that goes underground with, you know, GPR and follow it, or, you know, ground penetrating radar.
I've seen a couple of videos out there. Oh, that's a bit freaky. Just ghost there, Nick.
If this was where they brought this bell inside it, this fly trap, and had to chain it down so that it wouldn't, you know, fly up into the air. How did they get it inside? They would have had to like pick it up over the top and layer like with a crane. You know, because it's not like you could just wheel this thing straight out and put it in here.
I don't know if you guys can see here, but there is kind of like each column has stuff on it that essentially I don't know if it would have had something there.
I mean, I'm not an engineer, but like, how strong is this stuff? I mean, these pillars, would these even be strong enough to hold something like that back and without breaking free?
I think they've got steel running through them.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be steel rebar, reinforced concrete. It's a very strong for, you know, dynamic and static load. But where's the web? How, I don't know if this is a water tower. What was the base made out of, and everything else? Was it just all steel or what?
Well, there's a photograph of the henge where there was no grass, there's no soil at all, and actually a load of water. It's actually like a pool. And you can see a guy actually in it. I cannot find a photograph, but that's the idea where the water tower came from. But what I was going to say, guys, check out a YouTube channel called Tino Struckman. He's a German historian, and he's gone to the place many times, and he's showing you stuff that is unbelievable. So basically, underneath it is a massive tunnel system, but there's like electrical cables, like big, thick cables that run all the way in a circle. And it almost looks like it's putting power to these pillars going up. It's immensely fascinating. So it looks like whatever this thing was electrically charged, because there was a power plant next to the henge here. So what it was pumping loaded electricity. I mean, according to Igor Wachowski, it was enough power to power Berlin. That is how much power was being pumped into this place here. So we're dealing with very high voltage. Tino Struckman, check him out. He's absolutely brilliant.
What's like the main?
That is a water tower.
I was gonna say, what was the mainstream explanation of this right now, of what this henge is or used for? Was it just the water tower? Or is it the mainstream
water tower? That's what.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just basically just a water tower.
A water tower, support tower for, you know, this facility. Which I think they would have had more, you know, there'd be more stuff going on underground in secret than out there on, you know, kind of where it's pretty exposed or in the open. But yeah, this is a residential section right nearby, right? So there's housing and stuff.
Well, I think this was like I mean, I could be guessing here, but this looks like this has been derelict for a long time. I think this was probably the base by the looks of it.
Yeah, at least residential housing for the occupants of this.
I want to go here. Damn,
yeah, I really want to go. That's a place I want to
We'll do it. We'll do it.
This is the German Los Alamos, huh? They got everybody there. They're all through
the next road trip. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just what is really interesting about this though is the fact that they said they moved this thing. That there's a lot of like conspiracies out there that this thing still exists. Whatever was in the center of there actually exists. There is a railway running alongside of this. I don't know if you can see it here. You got the railway. You see it keeps lighting up. That's the railway, and it does go. Thing goes from well. I've been trying to track this railway, and it goes for miles. So whether that was the reason why this railway stopped here, I don't know.
Well, the device was, according to Igor Wachowski's book, the device was tested underground first. And what's interesting, linked to the Pennsylvania crash in Kettsburg, that it was surrounded in ceramic bricks when they tested the bell.
Yeah, the ceramic bricks. I had that. Yeah,
ceramic bricks. Yeah, and when they tested it underground. Now, one of the guys,
the room was laced with apparently with ceramic bricks as well. So when you look at the underground,
that's right. Yeah. So there's a link to that with a truck driver who was supposed to bring ceramic bricks to the Kettsburg crash, which almost looks like the same crash that looks like the Bell project, like we talked about earlier. So it's almost like a link connection there. But then test outside because it was giving off a massive amount of background radiation because of it. And Igor Wachowski's got a document, and it suggests that about 7 scientists had so much radiation from whatever this device came from. I'm going to try and bring it up tomorrow. I should have brought it up today, but
oh, you're fine.
So it was tested underground first, and then they bring it up. But there are reports of Polish prisoners seeing this blue glow where the henge is. I've got to bring that document out. That's what they reported.
Purple's been mentioned as well.
Purple, blue, that sort of glow.
Ultraviolet, that would be the higher end of the spectrum. It might be bridging into frequencies we can't see.
Jeremy, with the ceramic bricks that were mentioned, because I've heard this quite a few times, like the whole underground has got ceramic bricks all over it, and they mentioned that somebody said that they speculate that the bell had ceramic bricks surrounding it. Does that have any significance to yourself with science for protection or anything like that when it comes to?
Well,
space shuttle use
what kind of bricks? I mean, you have different types of ceramics and ceramic bricks, which they're actually what are called refractory materials. They're materials that will absorb a lot of radiation, and the radiation will go into this material, and it will just bounce around inside and get stuck and trapped inside the material for a while. And that's why, like fire bricks, like the ceramic bricks you use inside of a fireplace, will heat up from all that energy, and they stay hot for a long time. And it takes them a long time to heat up, but once you get them going, they stay hot for a long time. And some of those materials are made to, bounce that, like the fire brick in a fire brick's made to like do that, trap the heat and bounce it around, and then refract it or reflect it in a weird way. And then the bricks on your nose cone or your heat shield, like on the Falcon SpaceX spacecraft, the nose cone, those tiles are made out of like very low thermal heat. They have very low specific heat, so it takes you can put a ton of energy into them, they won't trap it at all. It's made to minimize some of those effects. So different types of ceramics can have different properties. So I wish we could have more information about, was it red brick, was it white brick, any kind of like characteristics about the brick would be able to tell me more information about this. White, fire brick is like a whiter brick versus, but it seems to me that it has to do with radiation shielding or radiation, something to do with bouncing around all the radiation that's going on. That's, to me, what I would guess, if there's a connection there. It might be just causation correlation fallacy. There might have been, a shipment of bricks that they needed for something else. And so,
well, what about the shape of the bell, Jeremy? I mean, is there any significance? Like, if you were going to create something like this, why would you go with a bell versus any other shape? Any thought on that?
Well, I think a bell is really good at resonance, right? So that's why we build bells because they're really good at finding that specific key or resonance. So maybe this has something to do with resonances. The other idea is it's just a torus with, these counter-rotating drums, apparently. One went this way and the other was another counter-rotating drum going the opposite way on top. maybe it's just the structure they designed it for some other reason, but it sounds to me like resonance would probably be the best reason I built something in the shape of a bell, kind of like.
I mean, during that time, does that make sense though? Like physics wise, their knowledge, would they be, aware of stuff like that? Like how resonance would work like that?
Yeah, I don't know, because like, when you get into mechanical vibrations of phonons or mechanical lattice vibrations, they can have coupling to atomic, vibrations or nuclear interactions as well, because there's a vibronic coupling there. So potentially they could have, known about this or had some reasoning, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know, because there's a gap in who the scientists were and where their literature is. Because I mean, if it was classified, sometimes the scientists, they don't publish any of that literature, so you don't find it in the journals. You won't find it anywhere, and that's
the thing, mate. They're all probably dead,
and they're all probably dead. So, but the other thing is,
yeah, go ahead.
Where is that today? So someone who could replicate that today, and who's working on that, and anything like that. And I don't see anyone really doing that, except for a few people in like the APEC, alternative propulsion community out there, who have, just basically what I call it, just throwing shit against the wall until something sticks. And that's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, it's a guessing game of, like, well, does this work? Does that work? And, we got these stories that are, now 70 years old, that, through other sources, and we're trying to, piece this together. And yeah, you can get so far with that. But again, it all boils down to what you can produce and reproduce in your own laboratory at home. So, can I get some mercury and spin it around and try adding things to it? Maybe try messing with the structure of the mercury, some of the isotopes of mercury. Maybe it's a different isotope. Maybe I got to bombard it with neutrons until we get, a higher concentration of one isotope of mercury.
Can we establish? Can we just put that out there and settle the record straight? Red mercury does not exist.
As far as we're aware, I mean, as far as I've seen, I don't like. There's a lot of things about these devices from Russian electronics that supposedly have red mercury in them, and these switches and stuff, and people sell these components and things for big money on the market. But a lot of them is I forget what it's called, but it's a type of capacitor that they use in old electronics. And somebody was able to identify it on one of our, I have a whole stream on red mercury there that we did a while back, but it was some kind of electronic. But as far as we know, there's no one's ever been like, well, this is the red mercury, this is the 525, and here's the recipe, right? That was the 525 was allegedly from the documents in that book, right? That was allegedly the formula for this mercury-based plasma that they were using in the test.
Have you ever looked at anything and thought this thing actually, like, with your research, thought, oh, I think it could have existed, this red mercury?
Well, I think that it might be just what they called it. There, is obviously, when you're dealing with proprietary information,
a nickname, yeah.
It's a secret, it's a trade secret. So you're not gonna. It's like the recipe for Coca-Cola. You're not gonna just, throw that out there.
I mean, even Paperclip couldn't have got. Did we get anything out of Paperclip that would resemble the possibility for this, though?
Right, I'm going to mention something now. This links into Paperclip. A good thing you mentioned it. Have you heard of Kurt Dabos?
Kurt Dabos, yeah, DEBUS, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He was supposed to be, he's allegedly a rocket scientist. Well, he's not a rocket scientist. I've looked into it. His scientific background is high voltage plasma research and measurement. That sounds like the Bell Project. He was actually ordered by Wernher von Braun. And yeah, that's him. He's got the battle room scar along his cheek. He was a bloody Nancy. He was the head of the Apollo program in NASA, along with Wernher von Braun. So he was known as. They see that scar. He's
Wow,
got
look at
underneath
that
his chin?
scar, man.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That is.
That's
So I don't know if you know about that. They do battles when they were younger. It was almost to show their, I don't know, like gentleman or sort of like a warrior sort of status. But yeah, they would do swordry, and that is his battle wound scar. Bigger the better.
That's from a
as they say.
sword.
Yeah.
he did that on purpose, or he got that in a war, not in a real battle. No.
No, this is when they did it when he was young. This goes into what they were into. It gets all a bit. I won't say
just
esoteric,
kids
but-
messing about. Yeah, I got hit in the face with a sword.
It's weird, but you find all these SS generals. They got all these battle wound scars. It was to show their. I don't know about it, to be honest with you, but they did something real fucked up. That sort of shit. But yeah, his scientific background is high voltage plasma research and measurement.
Oh, there he is.
But yeah,
Werner von
Werner von
Braun.
Braun. There he is. Yeah.
Look at that! Look at that! Look at that mug.
So those people, so Werner von Braun, he was based in Peenemünde, and they would execute the 5 slowest Jews, and they will hang them publicly, and it was to get the message to the other people, to the other workers, to say, look, don't be slow worker. And these 2 people were responsible for that. And there they are in charge.
Frei.
Von Braun looks so serious, man. That guy, he looks like a guy you don't mess with.
No.
Yeah.
Arbeit macht frei.
God,
that means work will set you free. That was on the gates of Auschwitz when you got it was the death camp, right? No, that was sorry, it wasn't Auschwitz. What was the name of it? Dachau.
Dachau, yeah.
And boy, what a lie, huh?
Wow. Yeah, huh? What a lie, you know.
What a lie.
You think you're working to get set free, but you know, it's just no. And they paved the roads to the concentration camps with the cemetery stones of dead Jews.
True evil, man. It's true evil, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get like you can watch
fucked
any
up.
scary movie that you want, anything. Nah, that's true evil right there.
Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than when you really dig into the Holocaust and the people involved. But this is interesting. So he was the plasma scientist.
Yes, indeed.
What did he come over and work on and do? This V2 rocket. Davis led the test stand group, Peenemünde.
That's it. Yeah, he was the. So if you look into his background, he deals with a lot of research in plasma measurement, and his scientific background almost resembles the Bell Project in that sort of aspect, in that detail.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do
But
we
when
know
it
if he
comes
was ever
to-
based in Poland?
Oh no, Peenemünde. That was where they built the V2, V1 rockets there.
Yeah.
But allegedly, according to Joseph P. Farrell, the Bell Project went to Argentina, where Hans Kammler, the head of top secret for the SS, went to, because they had these huge planes. I can't remember what they're called. They were like 6-engine planes, and they were gigantic. They were actually self-fueling planes, and that was like a cargo plane. It was huge, and I wouldn't be surprised if they put some sort of Bell device, because it was only about 9 foot in diameter and 15 foot height wise. So they could have fit a device onto that plane.
So what? They never really got them off the ground by themselves. I mean, they were still transporting. I mean, why wouldn't they just fly it over there themselves? You know, is that the story? Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about this stuff, about this side of ufology.
Yeah. Well, Hans Kammler, this gets into or never found after the war. He wasn't part of the U-boats, like the submarines. So there's some speculation whether or not they went on the plane to or they went into the U-boats. It's very sketchy. You really got to look into it really seriously. But Hans Kammler, he died several different times, and in the 1980s, they said, "Oh, yep, there's his grave here. Don't worry about it." And they were ordered to dig it up, and it was fucking empty. He's died several different times, all comic book style. he's never ever been found. And Hans Kammler, he was head of all top secret programs for the SS. He would have known everything: the missiles, the flying saucers, everything. Although there
What
is
happened
a
to
check.
him? What happened to him?
No idea. He
No
went. He
idea.
disappeared.
So
Like I said, he died several
What's
different times.
interesting is one of the ways that a lot of these Nazis escaped Germany in World War II were through Catholic pedophile priests and something called the rat lines. They would transfer them to another church, give them a fake identity, and then into another country, and then they'd go to Argentina from like Spain or through Switzerland or Australia or one of these other countries. And it was all like with the help of the church. It's fucking...
Of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just terrible, the war crimes and how far back it goes. And then, some of this stuff, man. But yeah, again, they have them dying several times to cover up the death. So that when he's getting found out, people think that Hitler, survived and lived and stuff too.
Yeah. I'm in that mind camp. I don't believe he died in that bunker. I reckon every single SS general, anyone in the high up had a double stunt, had a body double. They had an exit plan. Believe me, like Hans Kammler, Heinrich Müller, the head of the Gestapo, they went missing. Another person,
Eichmann,
Eichmann as well. All these people had an escape plan, guys, and they were never ever found.
Were there ever any quotes about Hitler, like talking about the Bell at all? I mean, is that too much of a stretch? I mean, was there any kind of history of him in that program, like where his connections were?
He's got
These projects were tops. Yeah, you see that scar there. Yeah, I mean, these programs were top secret. They wouldn't allow anybody. I mean, no one knew about the Bell project until the 90s, but they're like 1990 when Igor Wachowski sort of broke the story.
That's far.
So
out.
it really is far out, So God knows what's happened with these documents and everything. It gets deep. If you want to put the information,
there was a story that I heard where a prisoner of war, a Nazi prisoner, did say to one of the I think it was an American officer that you have no idea what's coming. We have in so many words, like the wonder, like they've got that the what they call the wonder chuffing, the wonder weapon.
Wunderwaffe.
Yeah,
that's the
one. I don't know if they meant like the nuclear bomb.
Right.
When it comes to that, because there was that whole race going on. And did they mean that? So that was one of the theories with the Bell, that was an object to, like, I could be getting this wrong, the science behind it, but I'm sure I heard this, to produce like plutonium. Has any of you guys ever heard that theory?
I know that they were they had the whole
is that even possible for a device to produce it?
What, to produce plutonium?
Yeah, like a man-made version of it.
Yeah, Jamie, pull that up, will you?
Let me just see. Yeah, I want to know the German nuclear weapons program. Here they had this pile at Hagerlock. They were working on some stuff, man. I mean, the Germans had some stuff during there, but I don't know that they had any. I don't know that they were super close to building an atomic bomb. I don't know how close they were. What's the guy that would know? He was from. I covered him under. I gotta find the name of the scientist now who would know. I think this was under the Roswell report that I have. Roswell. Let me just find this real quick. The name of this guy. scientist that was connected to some of this.
By the way, boys, 100% of the audience, because I put a poll up, think the bell was real.
Yeah.
It existed.
Yeah, so this guy, he was wrong. He wrote a report. No, this guy wrote a report, Operation Alsos, right? So that was the atomic bomb assessment thing. And he claimed in the report that the Germans weren't even close, but they were. But you know, so he got it wrong. He got the intelligence wrong. This guy was Samuel Goudsmit. And what was that project? Alsos. Yeah, so that was Alsos mission. Yeah, that was this thing right here too. Back to there. Yeah, so they went and dismantled. They had a whole facility. The Germans did for making heavy water. So they were basically like taking regular seawater, and it takes a lot of energy to boil off all the seawater that leaves all the deuterium behind. It takes a lot of energy and a long time to make heavy water. But you need heavy water because it has a high neutron capture, and it's good for your nuclear reactors so that they don't go supercritical or out of control. You can still contain the reaction if you put in a neutron, because it's your neutrons that start the nuclear reaction. You get what's called neutron density going, and neutron flux right here. Neutron flux will be what you have inside of your nuclear physics and your nuclear reactor. You get a bunch of these heavy neutrons swinging around, and they start smashing stuff up and breaking stuff. And yeah, that's why you need neutron capture. Certain things are good at that.
So would you need uranium for this then?
Well, uranium is one of the parts of the nuclear power. So you have the uranium fuel rods in your nuclear reactor, right? And then they're in this bath. They're in this bath of heavy water, and then that heavy water it forms a neutron capture, so it slows down the neutrons.
Right, because the Germans were stockpiling on loads of uranium, and I know a lot of uranium went missing to the war, specifically in Germany. So, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff, man.
Like captured by the program. That's the whole Lewis Slotin experiment with the criticality. You know, Lazar talks about that half shell.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It reminds me so much of Lazar's story. That.
And they have this plutonium sphere in the middle and this beryllium half shell, and the beryllium, of course, is a neutron reflector, right? So you get this stuff decays slowly over time and releases these neutrons, which normally they fly off and they go somewhere and they escape, right? And just randomly, there's a couple, maybe a couple thousand of these reactions happening per second, right? These neutrons are just blowing off and escaping through radiation. When you put them inside this half shell, and then you put the other half shell on top, what happens is this half shell, all the neutrons that try to go this way reflect and get bounced back, So they go back. A neutron escapes, bounces back and goes back through the core. So when you put the other half shell on top, right, what happens is now that the neutrons are just bouncing around in here more and more. And every time those neutrons, if they hit an atom inside here, it knocks another one off, causes another reaction. And soon enough, you get tons of neutrons bouncing around here, and it causes a runaway chain reaction, and you get something going supercritical. And that's what happened to this guy's hand. That's Lewis.
So you cannot touch that thing with the
blue light that gives off. It fatally irradiated 3 people, 2 of the scientists in the room, and gave the rest died of cancer years later.
Right. So
the exposure.
I mean, speak to me like I'm 5.
Right.
So this thing. How do you even make this thing? How do you even?
Battelle made the core. Actually, it was interesting. Yeah, Battelle were the metallurgists that made the core for the Demon core for the Manhattan Project. So they take ore that has a small amount of plutonium in it, and they refine it and refine it and refine it and refine it and refine it. They have to use these centrifuges in order to separate out the stuff in these giant centrifuges. And those centrifuges are what went down with Stuxnet. See, Stuxnet, they basically took a program inside of that would hack into the operating system and send the so someone in the facility in Iran basically polluted their programs with this Stuxnet virus. Somehow they got it into the Stuxnet software. It got on someone's flash drive and got into the Iranian control system for their nuclear isotope separators. And it caused the control system to spin the centrifuges out of control, which made them all blow up and fry and cause tons of damage and ruin a lot of their operation. But this was like a CIA covert espionage operation against Iran's nuclear program, and how they used the software on a flash drive to hack their freaking.
Yeah, I remember hearing something about that. What year was that again? I remember hearing about that.
That was 2010.
Yeah. That's when people were starting to freak out about, they could just hack in the stupid USB stick. Yeah, okay.
Well, that's what they're saying is they're like, oh, what about the control? How secure? There was all kinds of warnings. How secure our power distribution network or our this or that? And there's a difference between the control systems. They're what are called programmable logic controllers.
Yeah.
And that's what run a lot of automation in industry. And a lot of them are hardwired, but some of them run on programs. So if you can know that, if you know enough about the software end of it, you can hack these things. But some of them are much more secure and built to be much more secure. In fact, there's a company that started up. I won't get into all that. I know a lot about automation.
Jeremy, go back to the core. Go bring the picture of the core thing up.
So the demon core, right, was that
so Lazar described something very similar to this.
Right.
So you spoiler alert, people. Jeremy started out as a massive Bob Lazar fanboy. Am I right by saying that?
Yeah. I mean, that was got me into a lot of this stuff back in the day. 20 years ago.
So you must have looked at this thing because
Lazar has his element 115
physics,
reactor.
You know your elements.
Yeah.
You know your science.
A little bit.
Have you ever looked at this thing and thought, how could this power a craft and come up with a logical explanation that you could break down to us? Or is it just a simple no?
What I think happened, right, and you can see in the early videos of Lazar, there's there's some videos with Lazar where he goes into the Los Alamos National History Museum, and he's filming right there, and he's got an old film of him right in front of Fat Boy. So he's definitely he's out there at Los Alamos, right? He's working at Los Alamos for Kirk Meyer Corporation as an electronics technician. Kirk Meyer did not employ physicists. There's no evidence that he was a physicist, but he's working out there for Kirk Meyer Corporation at the Meson Physics facility. So he's getting access to he's seeing a lot of real physicists who work at that same facility. He's learning a lot about all this stuff, a lot of classified stuff he probably was exposed to and learned there at the time, right? Now, Los Alamos National History Museum, right down the street, and right inside the History Museum, where we know he visited because there's videos of him, shooting his old videos at the History Museum in front of these exhibitions. This is the exhibition. There's the bomb right there, and there's an old video with Lazar standing right in front of this thing talking about alien physics and UFOs. Now, right inside the museum, there's a big thing about how all this history of how they did it. This was like a container that they built in case the thing didn't go off, so that the explosives wouldn't blow everything up everywhere, and they could still recover some of the millions of dollars worth of plutonium that went into this thing. But yeah, you go back there, yeah, of course he would have known the history of this. So where did he get the element 115 reactor stuff from? And the story about the 2 scientists that died while cutting into a reactor? He says that he was hired to replace the 2 scientists that died. But I mean, there's no, OSHA requires that any death that happens on the job has to be reported within 48 hours. Now it's 24, but back then, in the late 80s, there's no evidence that any scientist died in the late 80s that Bob was hired to replace. And the element 115 reactor with the half shell, his whole setup here, it sounds an awful lot like the Demon Core, where we know 2 scientists were killed, Louis Slotin and Harry Daghlian, right? So where did Bob get the story? I mean, what's interesting
I think Oppenheimer, man. I think when I watched the Oppenheimer movie, well, I've seen so many. He had to have been a super fan of him. There's so much of his story that just copies Oppenheimer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because Oppenheimer is the movie of our day, but there was a movie that came out in 1989. This movie came out literally the year Bob Lazar came out. And this was a movie about the Manhattan Project. If you guys haven't seen it,
yeah,
no, not seen this.
Yeah, go watch it. They have a whole scene inside Fat Man and Little Boy, right? The Slotin accident. Fat Man, Little Boy, right? You probably find the clip from it. Yeah, so this is the actual clip from the movie, and this is where they're running the experiment. He's standing behind all the radiation shielding blocks. This is where the thing goes supercritical right here. And he decides to grab it with his hands in order to save the lives of everyone in the room, thereby fatally irradiating himself. And then, you saw what happened to his hand.
And did he die not long after that?
And he died not long after that, very sick in the hospital for several days while that was going on. But yeah, it's interesting because this is all around the same time period. And go watch that movie, and this is all about the Manhattan Project. So.
Yeah, definitely.
But but within your research, do you see anything in that sort of tech when it comes to?
This is all about. It's all about. This is all mass to energy conversion and nuclear physics. I mean, this is all.
But does anything add up? Does anything add up to fly something?
No. There's nothing about gravity. It's nothing to do with gravity or gravitation or gravitational science.
Because you guys are working on how to crack it.
Yeah, so there's we think it's done with trapped light, and there's Ling Hao is
like crystal
professor at Harvard. She's doing all kinds of. She's the one that trapped light and slowed it down to a stop inside of this crystal, and doing all these experiments with trapping light inside of Bose-Einstein condensates and other exotic materials, and that's really where I think the future of this stuff is. I mean, you go into guys like Bernard Hayes, a guy who was a senior staff physicist for Lockheed Martin, provably Caltech, PhD, and you look into guys like this. By the way, Bernard Hayes was going to do an interview. He did an interview and a whole video called Quinta Essentia. And this documentary was supposed to come out in 2005. And this isn't it. But it was supposed to come out in 2005, but it never did because he never signed the release to put it out there publicly. So they could never release it. And a couple of the guys in that documentary, like Todd Desiato, are now on the APEC team and work with us directly. But you go back into what he was working on, this 0-point field and inertia, how to derive inertia from the quantum vacuum, and all the stuff that's in his literature, the stuff that he's writing about. Arthur C. Clarke wrote his final book in the future series there, the 2000 Space Odyssey, you know, he wrote the final book, and in it he has propulsion of these advanced systems that are based on this technology. He wrote that after like reading all this stuff from this physicist. Which you compare a guy like this and the work that he's done and how this stuff works, and it's just different. It's night and day between what Bob is talking about and has published and has on you know, his literature going behind him and stuff. Yeah, so unfortunately, you know, I don't have much faith in a stable element of isotope of element 115, you know, being the secret to bring us. But metamaterials and trapped light and using, you know, this whole inertial mass and quantum vacuum fields, all the stuff that he was writing about, you know.
What do you? So you mentioned metamaterials there. And we spoke briefly about TTSA, and they brought the Atom project into play. That was there for about 3 weeks. Then it disappeared, and we never saw anything. We just saw the safe being opened with whatever they had in there. But you heard from Hal Puthoff that essentially they had pieces, and we saw some of the pieces, and with a few zoomed in shots with a few bits of jargon science, with some of these pieces of metal we have I've got metamaterials. We like smart put together pieces of metal that has been made by somebody. Do you believe that there are pieces out there that we have that are metamaterials that we have no idea where they've come from? That's the one.
Yeah, this piece, right? Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I don't know, like people have said that all looks like slag from the you know, manufacturing industry, like a zinc bismuth slag. Right, that was the McWest Metabunk explanation for this, and they left it at that. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff to this because, you know, again, why the layered materials? Well, it kind of looks like you have different layers of materials with different refractive indices, and you create what's called a Bragg mirror or a dielectric mirror. You have, no, is this a way to trap light and do something with the structure of it on a subatomic level? We don't know. You know, we had TTSA come out with all this stuff. You know, Tom DeLonge went on Joe Rogan and said it was terahertz. You know, they shoot terahertz at this piece of material, and it becomes weightless, right? Well, it turns out that, you know, terahertz is definitely some classified stuff. We found out that through the case of Isaac Vincent Kemp, whose home was raided by U.S. Air Force OSI, and he lived right next to
another raid,
Wright State University. So this was Wright State University, and this guy ended up doing a year in prison for bringing documents home. And the documents, his research was related to terahertz related research on polariton condensates and stuff. If you look into what he wrote his thesis on, and the kind of research he was doing. So we know this classified, you know, he did a year in jail for bringing home classified research on terahertz stuff. So we know that that's real, right? We know that there is classified research going on related to that. They wouldn't have raided this dude's home and sent him to jail for a year if it weren't something serious. But what is the whole deal with all this? Well, there's this whole idea, and if you read into the papers and the literature, these guys, they talk about this moving mirrors and this dynamic Casimir effect. It's related to what Mike McCulloch talked about with this quantized inertia, this so-called maritime Casimir effect, and the whole fabric of space-time, an analogy between what happens in the ocean with waves being damped and what happens inside of unrubbed bath of free space. There's a whole DARPA money going into all this with the M drive. They're funding a lot of this research right now, trying to look into it, and it's very controversial. But yeah, this was the whole Hal Puthoff thing, and Hal Puthoff did this whole presentation one time where he brought up this paper by this guy, Victor Podolsky, and talked about left-handed terahertz metamaterials and trapping light between, two mirror, a dielectric filling between two mirrors, which, is that what the function of these layers are? Are you trapping light in these layers and then doing something with the light? There might be something plausible to that.
But what would that do? What's the kind of like end result by doing that?
The idea is that
when it comes to if this was the shell of a craft,
if you got a shell of your craft and you're pumping enough of this light energy into the craft, it causes a dielectric breakdown of the vacuum, like where basically the vacuum around the craft can kind of it's basically like, the idea is that we live in this universe of this unrubbed radiation bath, this radiation that's everywhere all around us, and everything's sort of oscillating in waves inside of this space. So the idea is that, well, are we in a simulation? That's been a question that's been brought up by a number of people. Are we in a simulation? And I don't think we're in a simulation, but I do think that it's holographic in some degree, down to the fact that everything that here is built up of a manifestation of electromagnetic fields. So if it's all light and it's all electromagnetic fields, then that's the source code, brother. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a simulation or not. We have the source code. So if you can find a way to, using quantum mechanics and these quantum metamaterials, to hack the source code,
manipulate it,
of space-time, then you're talking about, well, we can have quantum non-locality. You can entangle 2 points in distance with enough photons. Distant points in space could become entangled. So you get this issue that, well, action at a distance, you can get teleportation across, great distances potentially, without breaking Einstein or breaking the laws of physics, because you're literally entangling these 2 points and opening up a wormhole through this, what are called Einstein-Rosen bridge, ER, these Einstein-Rosen bridges. And a lot of interesting paradoxes in the physics literature when you dig into Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen, the EPR paradox. And the solution to that EPR paradox being, well, there's an Einstein-Rosen bridge, this quantum entanglement between points in space. And it kind of has this idea that, well, Einstein physics and what we see is just an emergent of this quantum entanglement structure that's really the deeper physics that's happening.
So is it just like a battle of ideas of how they're actually entangled and how that works? It's just different theories that are trying to figure that out? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's some theory trying to look into this. Of course, you get into the mathematics of this stuff, and it's pretty advanced. So we're having to deal with computers that do a lot of that stuff. With Wolfram's the one killing it on this right now, right? Stephen Wolfram, with the what he has done with the work he's doing with the group. And he's not publishing any papers, man. This is all just live streams, and they just put this out a month ago. If it's this is real heavy. If you guys want,
did I just see that he was on Lex Friedman?
Yeah, he was on Lex Friedman.
I think you and Lex Friedman would get along great.
Right, yeah. So there's Stephen Wolfram on Lex Friedman. That was 3 years ago. I don't know if he's been on recently. This one's from a month ago, and this is, advancing on the work that they've been doing. But they basically show how to derive quantum mechanics from the Wolfram physics model using this branchial space and the hypergraph model. And this is, a whole different way of looking at our universe and looking at physics. And
Well, this is just why the stuff from like the Bell and German UFOs, all this stuff is such a hard sell to me, and just in general, like the Tic Tac. I mean, all of this just being our own derived technology completely. Like we didn't get this information from somewhere else. I mean, I just don't buy that they had the answers to this physics 60, 80 years ago. Other people would have figured this stuff out by now, right, Jeremy? I mean, you look at all the other physicists that are out there. What are the odds that we just had the couple of guys that were able to back engineer this, or not back engineer, but crack gravity, and just nobody else has been smart enough to do it for 80 years? We had to have got it from somewhere, whether that's from a different planet, extraterrestrials, or maybe it's interdimensional or AI. But this whole idea, like if you think the Tic Tac is real and it's our tech, the idea that we just figured that out and we've been holding the secret, I don't see how that's plausible when you look at this stuff like you're showing here. This is super advanced shit, man. Like I don't see this stuff takes decades, if not more, to even understand it. Like,
our theoretical physics to catch up, man. Like with what the best. I don't believe that they could, even with $30 billion, like $30 trillion, all the missing budget money that we've said, it's all gone to black programs, there's missing trillions and stuff, right? Even when we take all that money, you need the brain power and the minds, and these are the best of the best in the world right now, trying to figure this stuff out when you really look into it. So they didn't have the understanding back then, and there's no way that you could have developed that in a secret group and kept that so hidden, and they may have. I don't discount the idea, the notion from guys like Eric Weinstein, who thinks that a couple guys back in the 50s may have derailed physics. So back while they're researching all this stuff into gravity, they have these guys derailing physics. You have the secret college of Bryce DeWitt and his wife. They're having this secret college at North Carolina, Chapel Hill, with the secret gravity conference in '57 and all that stuff that we know about now.
You see that right there that you've got there on that screen? Yeah. What is that thing? That little cylinder thing?
This is Thomas Townsend.
No. Across the glass.
That's called a Crookes tube, and that's an electron gun. So when like Tom DeLonge was on Joe Rogan, and he's like, yeah, you fire an electron at it, and Joe Rogan's like, well, how do you fire an electron? How do you even do that? Well, this is how you do it. So you use one of these. This is an electron gun. It's an ion beam gun. And
that reminds me of something.
Yeah, the Egyptians had something like that, didn't they? Yeah.
That reminds me of that hieroglyphic where
it does look quite a bit like that.
Jeremy, can you bring that Egyptian thing up alongside that? I gotta see them together.
It's fucking crazy, man. It's like the Baghdad battery and all that sort of stuff. I mean, that's it there. That's fucking nuts.
Someone built one of them too to try to show it.
It is very similar,
yeah. There are some similarities there, huh? You got
that. It's just a massive dildo.
Well, the interesting thing is, right, you have this tiered structure here, and that looks like this is how we build insulators, right? So have you ever looked up the evolution of insulators, right? Yeah, these are all insulators, and it'll show you the evolution of them. This is how they started out. And then they realize, they shorten this way. So because of the magnetic field goes like this, so you have shorts that happen sometimes, right? So then we had to add this tier thing, and then we noticed, that kind of breaks up some of the magnetic fields, but some of them still get around, right? Right, and so they shaped the top one like this for the accumulated water, because they noticed the water would build up and then cause arcs and stuff. So, and then they added another tier, right? And they add more of these tiers, right? So you get these things. This is how insulators work, and it does it to break up the magnetic field lines so that you don't get electromagnetic field penetration through the hot wire to the other thing. Well, that's very,
Then when you
it's
go back
super
to that
curious.
Egyptian, you got that.
Yeah, exactly. It has the hieroglyphic, you have this structure here in ancient Egypt.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
there you
mental.
go. I mean, it's just kind of, they might have been doing more with electricity than we realize. It's the Baghdad battery, and other people have, theorized.
I think the helicopter and the tanker that has been proven to be a fake, hasn't it? The one that's showing up underneath there.
The helicopter and the spaceship, the submarine.
Yeah, I think those were like they said they'd fucked about with them.
Somebody got clever.
Yeah, somebody got a bit clever.
Well, when you have Ancient Aliens on for 10 seasons, the demand for these types of the demand for evidence goes through the roof, because it's like, and of course, where there's demand, there'll always be supply somewhere to meet the demand.
Right.
It's just market economics. So,
so Jeremy, we're approaching the 2-hour mark. You've
we touched.
I followed you for a long time, like even before I did Alien Addict, before I even had a channel. I saw you put stuff up that got your channel nuked when you were speaking about stuff that happened back in 2001.
Yeah.
Now, you're actually balls deep in this, like when it comes to trying to find out what this technology is. Is it Falcon Space? Is that what's the company's name that you work with, Jeremy?
Yeah, so falconspace.org, right? And this is our website right here. Yeah, I work with a couple different labs, but Falcon has been one of our big ones. It's down in New Jersey.
So what's going on with this, and how close are you to getting anywhere? And if so, how are you at risk from?
Well, you told me we're going to bring up what happened this morning, all right, with people.
I don't know. I'm kind of like I think
we're almost 2 hours. We're 2 hours deep now, man. If we bring this up, we're going to have to go for like another hour, man. So you either wrap it up.
No. I don't need to wrap up. I mean, I only said we wrap up when you want to wrap up. I said you leave when you want to leave. You're a guest. I brought this up at the end because I didn't know if you wanted to speak about it or if you didn't want to speak about it. So that's why I've addressed it the way I addressed it. You might just want to speak about the company.
Yeah.
Or you might want to speak about what happened.
Well, I might as well just talk about it because, by the time, I don't think they're, who knows? We're already tapped, right? So they already, if they visited the lab this morning, they already tap in our phones and know everything else that's going on. So
tell us the story then. Tell us the story from the beginning.
Why don't we bring the video? Do I have the videos, or should you bring them up?
I'll bring them up. You tell me to bring them up, but tell us the story first. Like, you get up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee. Let's go from there.
Well, Mark calls me around a little afternoon, a little before noontime.
Just for the drop though, could you just explain to the? I mean, I'm sure pretty much everybody knows you here, but if anybody's watching this, anybody wants to clip this, they can and share it out. That's fine. This is an open platform. Share what you want to share. What do you do before you tell us the story? What are you working on?
Well, we're working on a couple different experiments right now at that lab particularly. He's mainly working on NMR. He also got a guy named Ted Pittman who just moved down there to go and work in our lab with us. And we're building, we have an NMR set up with EPR NMR machine, which is electron paramagnetic resonance or nuclear magnetic resonance. So one's the resonance of the nucleus, the other is the resonance of the electrons in the orbital shells. And we're doing experiments with related to alzaphan, which was there's in 1980s there was a Boeing study that was done into alzaphan, and the alzaphan stuff goes back to the late 50s. It was published with Frederick Alzaphan, and very recently we had David Alzaphan, who's Frederick Alzaphan's son, come out to our lab and interview extensively, talk about his father's research, and we have a number of people working on experiments related to this. And the main thing is trying different materials, because we put them inside this EPR machine, which resonates the electrons and the nucleons, and we have a couple different things that we try as far as the frequencies and the ranges go, to see if we get any weightlessness. It's basically like we're trying to find that terahertz material that we can put it inside this machine and get it to float and get it to turn weightless. So we're trying tons of different stuff. We haven't found anything. We found a couple of weird materials that had some interesting, anomalies so far. And, so we've put those on the back burner, but we haven't had anything like float or do anything super crazy yet. We're just, we're basically doing, the experiments for that type of stuff to get it off the ground. So as far as, trying different materials and different resonances and different structures. So this is not building a UFO, but this is the basis for how you would build a UFO. It's proof of concept so that we could get the funding to actually build larger stuff to do it. But we got some people interested in this. We've done enough of the research and interviewed enough of the scientists and got enough attention on this that we've got people, funding our research and giving us money to go and investigate these things now, right? So the FBI shows up this morning, 9:30 at the lab. We got a video of this. I can share. Maybe you'd like to share it. But yeah, here. Why don't I bring that up?
Bring it up. Yep.
Oh, I didn't do that. I have to do the entire screen. There we go. So I think this might actually be them leaving. There are two agents that come. They showed up in the morning, and then they around this was right like 9:30. This is them leaving, I think. So Mark calls me a little bit after this, and tells me about this. Wait a minute, what's going on here? And he gives me the FBI agent's name. I'm not going to say his name here on the air, because I don't want to blow up. They're coming back on Monday, apparently, to go back to the lab and talk to them some more, right? So I don't know. Hopefully we don't scare them away, or maybe. Apparently they got a report that we had uranium being improperly stored in our lab. They closed that investigation, they said earlier this week, because they went around our entire lab with a Geiger counter and found no traces of radiation. So they closed the investigation. But somebody called the FBI and told them that we're doing something with uranium at that lab. Apparently, that's what they're saying to us. We don't have someone would have to go and get the FOIA and figure that out and get the actual. They didn't have a warrant, They just sort of showed up and were asking questions about us and everything.
Is this them leaving?
This is them leaving. So they came and talked to Mark for quite a little bit.
Put it from the beginning.
But I don't have any sound on this. There's
That's
no
fine.
audio. But this is the two agents. They're there with their paperwork and stuff. And they told Mark that they got a report on, uranium being improperly stored in the lab that they had to follow up on. But then they said something to the effect of that they were also investigating UAP for the FBI.
What?
So I don't know if these guys are involved in a general investigation into UAP, but the name of the individual for the investigator that Mark gave me, we looked him up. Mark actually found a guy. He's like, well, this is him. He's got gray hair now. The picture on his LinkedIn, he has brown hair still, but it could just be an older picture. But Mark's 99% sure that's the same guy. But that guy, if you look on his resume on the LinkedIn thing, right, it says that he has 28 years experience in the FBI investigating financial fraud. That's and money laundering. So financial fraud and money laundering investigations. I thought that was interesting, that they'd send a guy who's an expert in money. It doesn't seem like a propulsion or a physics, kind of investigator type. This guy's a financial crimes investigator, telling us that he's, got a report about uranium that they're investigating. So that's kind of weird. Now, as far as financial crimes go, it's like, we're not, telling anybody that we found anything. We're not out here, saying that I'm not like David Wilcox, saying that I got a spaceship that we're building in my garage and taking, tons of money from my, millions of dollars from his investors. Apparently he's raked in for this.
No flying car, huh?
Right. Or I'm not like TTSA where they came out and promised to actually build investors a spaceship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're actually just, scientists who are saying, well, if this exists, then we're going to look into it and try to find it. So I'm not like, we have investors giving us money to look into this stuff, but no one's getting defrauded of their money. No one's getting swindled. No one's being given false promises.
But
no one's under the impression.
What did they say about UAP though?
But they said, so Mark says that they're investigating UAP and they're interested in it. I'm like, well, that's very curious, because if these guys are actually, investigating UAP on behalf of the FBI, that's.
And you spoke to Senator Gillibrand, didn't you?
Yeah, we did a couple months ago.
Yeah,
so
right.
that might has something to do with that meet, because me and Mark and some of our fellows from Falcon Space went down to the Senate hearing, and we're actually in the Senate hearing room. You can see us in the picture in the Senate hearing room, and in the video that Mark had afterwards, where I talked to Senator Gillibrand directly about Battelle. And as soon as I did, I got interrupted by a guy who was like head of the Senate Intelligence Commission, and he gave me his card and it was like, we're very interested. We want to hear more about this, and please get in touch with me. And I was like, it was kind of like, yeah, you hit a nerve there. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that the FBI would be showing up to investigate this, and there might be spies. Mark's convinced that one of the guys in our group it might be a spy.
Um,
How many are there in your group?
He's thinking that somebody there's probably about 9 people just in the core group and stuff, but then there's other people outside and affiliates and people that work for people and stuff. But there's about 9 of us that are on different projects that meet up once a week to discuss progress and our research and share that.
Is this all funded through
interested viewers,
public,
people that are on YouTube that have just said, hey,
it's not as if it's a big money maker. It's just something to you can buy the equipment, you get the equipment from your funding, and you're doing this, you put the content out there. That's it.
I'm not interested in making money, man. All the money I make, I put right back into, this kind of stuff, which is a shame. And my wife may not be so happy with that. But
Neither's my wife. I just chat shit and get drunk on the show.
That's it. No, but we're trying to, get progress, because if all we need is one discovery, and it will all pay off, man, because that would change everything. And that's all it would take. If, Stephen Greer's right, and we figured this out in the 50s and have been covering it up ever since, it shouldn't be that hard to uncover it up.
He's always right.
No. There you go.
Well, I always think they worry, though, Jeremy, about smaller groups like you guys. That people like you guys come up with stuff, though. You figure stuff out. And, it's anything they can kind of keep tabs on. It makes sense. It
does.
It doesn't take a giant group to figure some things out sometimes, and
Well, the fact that we've gotten, like I know we've gotten some attention, and I'm like, I would rather get, like I was hoping to get like, Joe Rogan's attention or one of these other guys, but
I want to get you on Joe Rogan. Yeah.
Now we're getting the FBI's attention. This is kind of like, yeah, man, I'm starting to realize, like we're dealing with some serious stuff here, maybe, potentially, or it could just be like somebody doesn't like what we're doing and wants to try to, almost like, but then again, just calling up to report us for saying that we're storing uranium, like something completely false. Like I just don't.
It almost sounds like in the video game streaming thing called swatting. It's the same, almost the same idea as you kind of getting swatted. Somebody saying, "Hey, they got uranium," and they're coming over to bother you. Kind of like a troll situation,
I guess, but why not? There's so many better things. I won't mention those on air.
Did your buddy? I forgot the guy's name. Who they met at Falcon Space. But did they have all the right credentials? Did they have definitely 100%? Did he say that they were FBI and not somebody that may be impersonating the FBI?
No, this guy, I have his name. I sent it to you, I believe, on Twitter.
Oh, yes, you did.
See that? I mean, you can look him up on LinkedIn. His whole resume is right there.
I've seen it.
Man.
Yeah.
He's 28 years FBI veteran, and now I guess he works for the Attorney General's Office in Special Investigations, which I thought was, really interesting because this goes almost higher up than the FBI. They have a senior 28-year FBI veteran guy who's now working for the Attorney General's Office in New Jersey, going there to investigate this. So it's kind of, hopefully it didn't give away too many clues.
What about the other guy that was with it? Did you look him up?
I don't have the name on the younger gentleman though, of who that was, but apparently they're going to come back on Monday, and I told Mark, I was like, get both their business cards with their names. Like,
which one of those two gentlemen? The one that I know the name of?
Yeah, that's the older one,
or the younger one?
The younger one,
the UAP.
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, I gotta get Mark and ask him about this, man. Maybe I should get him to come on and do like a stream and just talk all about this, because this is exciting.
Listen, we would. I've said to you for a while, I'd like to get all you guys from Falcon Space on.
Let me see. I go see. Mark was not answering his phone earlier when I called him, but
get him on.
I'll have to get a hold of him. But I gotta get a hold of him and get more of the story from him, man. It's some of our group. One of our group members, Jared, was just on Linda Moulton Howe's freaking broadcast the other day. I sent you the link to that, huh? Oh, that was funny. Yeah, so like Linda Moulton Howe's there promoting the APEC conference and talking about propulsion and this group of scientists and stuff. I was like, all right,
she's turning a new leaf, Hey,
we're up. Hey, you know what? It's good. We can use all these avenues to bring some real information out. That would be good. But yeah, again, they can investigate us for financial fraud and that all they want, and they're not going to find anything because no one's being defrauded. No one's being sold false promises, and we're just doing investigations that people the government should have done, or other people should be doing. But
if anybody if you could think of, well, you can't say that, but do you have an inkling if someone may have reported you, who that person may be?
Mark thinks he knows, but I'm not sure. I don't. It just seems kind of weird why they would say. It's kind of specific of what they said and what they reported. So
was the word in UAP or was the word in UFO?
UAP. That's what Mark said.
That's
UAP.
interesting.
So they can use the new terminology. I wonder what. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're looking at the TTSA at the SEC is over that crash shit. So I mean, it makes sense that that's kind of the word around the cooler for a lot of them. Is they're probably starting to look at people like David Wilcock and all that. They're probably wondering, is there a bunch of people out here saying they've got, you know, free energy and they're making a ton of money? We can't do that. So I mean, it's on that scale now, you know.
I guess, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But again, have David Wilcox not, you know, saying, hey, the FBI was here this morning investigating the dumpster service that's been using my hangar.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
So maybe there's a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, but when you think about this though, Jeremy, is look at someone like David Wilcock and look at you though. I mean, way different levels of knowledge into physics and understanding and what's probably capable. I mean, I would be more worried about you than David Wilcock though, right? He's kind of a showman thing. Like you know, he's talking nonsense most of the time.
Yeah, but if you're a financial crimes investigator and you want to build a case for a financial fraud, I mean, he would be the guy I'd go after.
I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, but it just seems more plausible that you would get a lot more investment than he would. You know what I mean? And you could get better investors than he could. Most people kind of know that what he's doing is bullshit.
Yeah,
so you know what I mean?
He's got a bigger audience, I guess, and a lot, you know.
For now, we'll see. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It seems like this stuff's really I really think in the next year we're gonna see this blow up huge.
If you go on Rogan, man, that's a whole different universe of game changer level. Yeah.
I don't even know if I want to, dude.
We should
start, man. Man, you're crazy if you don't.
Get yourself on Rogan. If you don't,
I know. Some of the guys he's had on, I still look at some of the other guests and I'm like, what am I worried about? How bad can I possibly butcher this? You know?
Oh, if I ever went on there, I went on the ice cream show the other day. Rogan hands out whiskey. I had a whiskey before ice cream show. Don't watch that. I'm annihilated on that show. But just to set the record straight, you were not raided by the FBI. You've just been investigated.
They showed up with 2 agents in plain clothes, like with just notebooks, right? No guns, no SWAT team, no, you know, task force there looking for thallium poisoning and, you know, trying to find my element 115.
Jeez Louise.
You know.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that.
No, it was not a raid.
Frog's working.
There was no raid. There was no raiders. They weren't raiding anything. They didn't take anything. Apparently they went there a day before with a Geiger counter and went around our lab on the outside and closed their investigation into the uranium allegations after they found 0 evidence for any radioactive stray radiation.
The Lazar raid was to do, like, we established that was to do with a client of theirs, that a possible a murder investigation.
Yeah.
And Corbell, we think, just played that up a little bit.
For sure.
Oh yeah, no, he's telling the truth, man. They were really there for the element 115, though, right? What are you talking about?
But
that they know where it is, but they're just not bringing it out.
Didn't lie to us.
But don't you find it ironic that you've got something that like you and Lazar kind of like you've got this.
They're raiding. They're raiding.
Now they're raiding you.
Now we're on Lazar status officially. You know. So, George Knapp better pay note and pay attention, man.
I would say I reckon Jeremy and Lazar probably watch you and they like the show.
I'm sure they do, yeah.
God,
Yeah.
who knows, man? I talk so much crap about them sometimes, though, too, and they must be like, God, I do not like. It's like, don't read the comments.
It's just business, you know. It's you know whether we this whole thing that we do on YouTube with UFOs.
You got to play the Knapp deepfake clip, man, for the outro before the end of the show, dude. Have you heard that yet?
The Knapp deepfake?
You haven't heard the?
No, you're just gonna have to.
I'm gonna send it to you right now. Hold up, just
I can't edit in time. I've got no editing software here.
No, it's only 2:15. It's only 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Oh, I can play it.
It was this.
We get away with playing it.
Well, King Milk Fart Harassment Archive is the one that came up with this, and I think that's Chupacabra or like one of his friends. So
yeah, I've heard that.
They're cool. I guarantee they won't mind if you play it, especially as long as you're not saying this is mine. I made this.
I made this. That's my favorite thing at the end of X-Files.
King Milk Fart Harassment Archive. All right, this is the video on X, and someone put this together.
Hit it. Let's have a laugh.
All right, you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. Let me bring this up. Present. What do I do with this screen window? All right. Okay, no, so the audio. There. Now we'll show the audio. All right. You ready? So this is what everyone wishes that George Knapp would say. Live on air. Someone edited this in with a deep fake using George
think
Knapp's
I've seen
voice.
this, but
this is all right. You ready? Are you playing it? Are you on the screen?
I can't see it. No.
Forgot that I have to control it. Yeah, there you
Ready?
Yeah, like Rick Cody. That's who you're talking about, maybe.
Can't say.
Oh, hold on. Here's George. Here's George. He's going to say something. Go ahead, George.
Let me start by saying, fuck all of you. I hate you all, and I hope you all die. Jack Sarfati, I can't tell if you're smart or retarded. Tupacabra, KMF was right about one thing. It takes 10 minutes for you to say hello. UFO Shane, you are the single biggest grifter and fraud on all of UFO Twitter. Logan Black, what drugs are you on that you can hold 84-hour Twitter spaces? You guys want to get on my ass about the Element 115 samples? Fuck you. A lot of you are also keepers of the secrets. Ross Coulthard, where's the giant UFO? Jeremy McGowan, where are the Osiris secret recordings? Lou Elizondo, where's the 23-minute video? Luis Jimenez, where is the Sean Cahill audio? John Greenewald, where are your emails with Susan Go? And let's not forget that a lot of you so-called enlightened skeptics fell for the Leia Prime LARP. Talk about cringe and sad. Jamie from Todiwaba, the nerve to copyright strike the hate group documentary. Your entire channel is reacting to other people's content. Tom DeLong, your movie was more disappointing than the imaginary spaceship.
Totally agree, George.
Thanks, Column. Charlie Weiser and Jolly isn't gonna fuck you. Spooky, Leah isn't gonna fuck you. Matt Monroe, you have a drinking problem. Uplifting tweets, you are the Bobby Shmurda of ufology. Sawan, you belong in a mental institution. Thomas Fessler wears the same outfit every time he streams. Darren Reed, your eyes make me uncomfortable. Ashton, you are a train wreck. Red Panda Koala, your documentaries are as stupid as your hat. Chris Lido, I don't even know where to begin. Cosmic Judas, are you being blackmailed? Tiny Klaus just left Twitter again. Stephen Greenstreet also just left Twitter again. Wait, never mind. They're both backing up to their usual bullshit. Milk Fart, you can't flip the tables in prison. Katie Howland wanted you to know she blocked you. I'm autistic, so I'm incapable of bullying. It doesn't make sense to me. Ray actually said this. Matt Ford, your fake political action committee made $7 last year. That is a real fact. G-Man out.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Wow, that's a lot of fire.
No, I've not seen that.
Wow, dude.
Fire.
Wow. Third-degree burns, brother.
Dude.
Oh,
That's good. That's very well done. Who's that? Is that Milk Fart?
that was the harassment. Gosh,
Amazing. I'm gonna retweet that out.
yeah, it's on Twitter. That's a good one. I can't. This is just great, man. These
Everybody
guys-
got lit up.
Well, boys, we've gone to nearly 2.5 hours. Jeremy, we've probably kept you longer than you wanted to be kept for, but I appreciate you being here, man. I would love to get Falcon, you and Falcon Space on, you and the boys, definitely.
Yeah.
And if we come out to the States, I don't know if we're going to come next year, but we would like me, Dave, and Lee would like we would love to come. And
you're welcome, more than welcome, man. I'd be happy to give you a tour. And
yeah,
shoot all the video you want.
Absolutely. But I will say this, people, that it does feel like something's building up. Lee, if he was here, he thinks something's going to hit next year. I don't know if we're going to get like a disclosure or anything, but I do think we're going to see. I think something's going to. It feels like something's going to hit. I don't know. I don't know what you guys' thoughts are about this, but I'll tell you something. We've got like 90-something people that believe that the bell was the thing. 92% of the audience believe that the bell actually existed. I should have established what they actually think it is. But I think 8% of the audience say no. So I don't know. I do feel like something's going to happen next year.
There's so much going on, man. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. And the internet and with what we can do now with the information, I think they've tried to crack down on a lot of stuff, but I just don't think they can stop. That's just humanity's natural progression. That's what I feel. It's. I don't think I don't even think they're trying to stop it at this point. They're just trying to monitor it and see who's got control of it and how far along certain people are and what. I wonder about, why was Mark raided down there, but our lab up here and no one else was raided, or not raided, but no one else was visited yet, just Mark. And this has to do with something to do with Mark. Mark visited Israel a couple months ago, and then we have all this stuff going on over there. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I just trying to we don't have any information until Monday when those fine gentlemen from the Bureau come back and talk to us more about, what they're interested in, what their concerns are. I don't know why a criminal investigative bureau for the government would be investigating us. Maybe
I know we're kind of wrapping up, but did they say what they were coming back? Did they specify that they wanted something for when? Can you have
That's
this
what he
ready
told.
for
Mark told. Apparently, from what Mark said is that they wanted to come back because they had closed the investigation into the uranium thing, but now they were curious about just general operations and the work that we were doing there, and they wanted to come back and meet with Mark to learn more about UAP and the research that we're doing there. So maybe I'm going to make sure that Mark has some stuff together, for them for their research and for their files and stuff, and I'm going to be open with the FBI like I'm open with the public out here. Just if you guys.
Would you say have you put any breakthroughs out there? Any sort of information that is different to what other small labs that are doing? And I think it's probably a handful in the world that are doing this type of thing. Right. Have you put anything out there to the public that I know you mentioned with Senator Gillibrand?
Well, I mean, we've got interviews with all the scientists who worked on all this stuff, man. We went and tracked all these people down over the last decade or so, and interview these people. And I interview them all. I go to dinner with scientists who worked at Lincoln Labs and other labs all around Massachusetts here to try to get information from these old timers about stuff, to try to get the ins and outs, man. So. Yeah, that might have attracted some attention. I don't think that that's what these guys are after, though. I mean, no one's ever bothered me for doing that. I don't know. I've even had people from DARPA and the intelligence agencies give me private props, being dude, thank you for what you're doing, because this is you're shining light down some dark tunnels, for all of us. So I don't know that they're concerned about what I'm doing as far as getting this information out there. I think they're more concerned with, keeping it all in one place and, making sure that, they don't want Hamas to get a hold of free energy or anti-gravity technology before they can, I guess is probably their biggest concern, I guess. I don't know. They don't want this technology to fall into the hands of Kim Jong-un or Putin, I guess is where they're at. But, and I've had a lot of people complain in certain countries that they can't get my videos and they have to use
we had I can't remember which video. We had a video the other day that was made limited to certain countries. And I'm like, what? I can't even. Why is that even the thing?
It's got a classified rating of what's called NOFORN, NOFORN, NOFORN.
Do you just YouTube, Jeremy, or do you go Rockfin or Rumble?
I gotta go. I started a Rumble account. I haven't done anything on there yet.
Yeah, we've got a Rumble account.
I gotta start doing
go subscribe, people. But honestly, Rockfin's a good one to go to. Have you heard of that?
No, I gotta check it out because we worried about that. Maybe I don't think YouTube's
we
gonna
launched
block
2
us.
months ago on Rockfin. We've got 400 subscribers, and I think in real term views, that's pretty good. That we've taken 400 people from this platform over to Rockfin, which is a very new platform. It's total free speech. I think Rumble, with what's going on with Russell Brand, is at risk of falling. I hope not. But you've got.
Yeah,
I think it's platforms.
I think if I do reach out to these other platforms, I think I'm gonna go as my full name rather than keep the Alien Scientist, because I found like there's a lot of people that just judge a book by its cover and have the stigma of when they see Alien Scientist, they're like, oh, what the hell is this guy? And
I think you should. I think you should go with your full name.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
I think I'm gonna like start doing that way. I can branch out too, and I don't have to just be pigeonholed into alien technology and science stuff. I can do other kind of stuff too. But yeah, man, thank you so much for having me on. We covered a lot of great stuff tonight, and I think we did an excellent job of diving into some of this stuff. Of course, this is a deep rabbit hole, as we were saying. This is a whole community of scientists that are coming together with these conferences and stuff, and sharing everything they know, and also competing for ideas, of experimentate. We get the experimentalists and then the theoreticians. It's a two-sided sword, and we're just going to battle with this thing as ferociously as we can, and we got yeah, but sorry.
No, just kidding. The poll ended at 90%. So
yeah, if there's something to this, man, and you know what, there's a ton of experiments I would love to do with mercury if I could get the right setup and
you need red mercury, mate.
Yeah, I would like to do experiments into that end of it, but mercury is just interesting and enough on its own. I don't know that you'd need any special mercury, because
no food coloring needed, huh?
I don't know. You could maybe, yeah, it'd be hard to do that because water solubility. What's the solubility in metal, versus water? Is just food color? Could you even die?
Honestly, I
don't know. I was just joking. I don't know.
do you know when people before we do wrap up? But when people speak about movies and how sometimes people think they tie movies in with what's actually going on in the world.
Yeah.
When you look at that Star Trek episode, the one before Spock actually died in real life, and Spock came back, his planet got destroyed by a red fucking Mercury. And you look at that, I find that a little bit interesting.
Yeah, it's like when they predicted transparent aluminum, like the ALON stuff, ALON. That transparent aluminum stuff was in Star Trek before it was in reality. So like they've done a lot of weird things like that.
Star Trek has got so much stuff right.
With the red matter, right? And then they have that lutetium hydride that they had when they pressurize it. It becomes room temperature superconductor, and it turns red when they pressurize it, in conjunction with the superconductor state, which is like super. What the hell? Like, why does it turn red and then become a superconductor? And like everyone was like, red matter, it's red matter. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man, how sci-fi it has sort of shaped the future on this stuff. And this is exactly what UFOs are, is this is our generation's ultimate sci-fi. And you've got a whole group of people that grew up on Star Trek and Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy and everything else that they want this reality for the future, and they're pissed off like what's going on, like why don't we have flying cars, man? Where's my flying car? And why are we building Terminator drones instead? What kind of future are we aiming for here, people? So
on that note, Jeremy, I'll start with yourself. Like Trekkie or Star Trek? Trekkie or Star Wars?
I mean, I like both, but as far as like physics and like, yeah, it would be Star Trek for like the tech and the real, if for reality goes. But I do also like the whole, this idea of the fighting against the dark side and the evil forces in nature, and this whole sort of religious aspect of this idea of being a Jedi and finding the good in the world and trying to fight for that, so there's elements from both that are like I like and identify with and motivate me. So
and you certainly are fighting for that with what the content you put out, because you believe in this subject. So
yes, I want George Knapp to join me on the dark side.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know this man already, and I'm pretty sure most of the people watching this live right now, what do you do, Jeremy? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So YouTube, AlienScientist is my channel. Altpropulsion.com is the APEC website. Falconspace.org is the lab website for Falcon Space. Then AlienScientist.com. I'm in the process of redoing that one over and really working on that, because we have a database that we're trying to put together, and then we're assembling a chat GPT, what's like a physics GPT.
That's cool. Yeah.
Where you can basically have an AI physicist that's the smartest physicist in the world, where you can ask them wherever you want. So we're working on all this stuff, and hopefully going to bring that out and like make it public. It might cost money to be searchable, because the AI, it costs money to like run the things and stuff. So you have to figure that all out. But it might be something in the future that might happen. Where people can just query these databases, and you could basically have the world's best propulsion scientists and AI that's accumulated all the physics knowledge that we have accumulated from all of our research. All those papers will go into something like that, and then that will be the ultimate. So that will save a lot of research time, because then you can just ask the AI direct questions rather than having to dig through. What is it, like 50 gigabytes of information that we have now. We have tons in our database, but we've had to clean and filter a lot of that data to make it usable. So that's a whole process. But AlienScientist.com. It's under construction. But
and if you want to hashtag it, people, hashtag AlienScientist on Joe Rogan, do it.
Yes, tag Joe Rogan. I don't know if it's even worth it. You gotta.
I think you'd have a great conversation. Somewhere. I think you get you.
I want to get on Lex first, man. I think Lex should happen first, and then
get the science out there.
Because Lex, he's definitely knows more of the right questions to ask than Joe would, I feel. Whereas Joe would be good though. It would be good for popularity. He gets a lot.
I think you get a good Lazar conversation going there.
That would be more focused on the Lazar stuff, man. And like when I went on Danny Jones, I'd have a ton of haters and just trying to you can't debunk Lazar. I hate people who debunk Lazar. No one can debunk him. And all this stuff. And it's like, come on, I'm just talking my investigation found. I'm not like I'm not trying to debunk anyone except I've always hated debunkers, man. I've like fought against these guys for so long, but some of that's needed. Sometimes there is some bunk out there, and you need to sort it out, man. So,
well, man, it's been. I appreciate you coming on, Nick, my lad, my Nazi UFO Nick.
Great job tonight, by the way, brother.
Yeah. Cheers, man. Thank
you. You've done your research on the stuff, and you got the books right there to back it all up, man.
Nick's doing a deep dive tomorrow on Terrestrial Materials channel. So Nick, let people know what's going on.
Yeah, I'm on Terrestrial Materials tomorrow. I'm going to break down the Nazi Flying Saucer program A to Z to the best I can with videos and photographs, really, really interesting. As a bit more confident, it's going to be a flow quite nicely. So look forward to that. And you can find me on the Cosmic Twilight. I will upload my next video very soon. I'm just battling with a full-time job. It's difficult. I'm not an editor. I'm shit with the camera, but if you bear by me, I'll upload it very, very soon.
And he's Graham Hancock's gardener. True story.
That's a very true story. Yeah. Thanks.
That's
Ollie.
how I met you.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. But yeah, look forward to tomorrow, man. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be really good.
Ice cream, my lad.
Hey, you know,
What's going on?
obviously, as Nick mentioned, tomorrow, really fun interview with him.
What
Going
time
over
is
Nazi
it?
UFOs. It's going to be 5:15 Eastern time, and it's right here on YouTube. Terrestrial Material is the channel name, and we do a weekly show. We talk obviously about UFOs, and we go over like current events and everything that's going on with it. Try to stay up on it as best we can. But yeah, it's really looking forward to tomorrow, man. Big time.
Sweet, me too, man.
You might want to tap up Jeremy before he gets taken out. You know.
Yeah, no,
Jeremy,
it's
you'll be
cool.
fine, don't worry.
No, it's cool. It's cool to meet you, Jeremy, for sure. Obviously, we watch your channels. Everybody that's in this stuff looks at this stuff. I mean, come on, you can't miss you. So I hope you definitely do get on Lex Friedman, get on Rogan. It'd be nice to see someone actually come in and give some facts about Lazar rather than just puff pieces every single time they come on Rogan. So it'd be very good.
Yeah, honestly, Jeremy, I was without being an arse slicker, because this does sound a little bit arse slicky. But somebody asked me a while back, who do you trust in this field? Who do you trust in ufology? And I couldn't answer the question. But I think I can with you.
Well, I'd say don't trust anybody. Always like verify, because I'm wrong on a couple things, and I have been wrong from time to time. Sometimes I get stuff wrong. So I always appreciate it when people call me out, but, and I'm always willing to correct myself if I am wrong. And, you should embrace being wrong instead of, thinking that it's somehow attached to, some people attach being wrong to their ego, and they're like, oh, I can't be wrong, But it's all right. It's just the more important to have better information always. So I appreciate that, man. I've worked hard to try to get some reality in this field, and I don't trust a lot of people, and I've come to learn. The more you get into it, man, the less you want to trust too.
I think if you'd have trusted and you'd have gone with it, you'd be bigger than you are.
Right.
I mean that in the nicest.
Well, yeah. If I hadn't questioned people and hadn't been the one to like call people out and throw them under the bus and do all that, I would definitely have been further along. I would definitely be way bigger and further along. But the fact that I've done that with some of the big names and top leaders and who are controlling this whole scene, it's really damaged my my street cred in some of the UFO circles for sure. But again, it's like, look at anything that I've said about any of those people and any of those names. I'm not going crazy. I'm not like, there's been a few things where I've said like, oh, well, where did Corbell get the money for his camera and stuff? And like UFO Joe and these other guys like to, take one of those comments that I made, 5 years ago and be like, well, this is what you said, and this is why I'm never going to listen to anything you say ever again. And it's like, sometimes I'm joking around. Sometimes I'm freaking 6 beers deep and, a bottle of Jack.
I can relate with
just
that.
fucking around on Twitter, man. It's like,
yeah,
it's Twitter, guys. Take it for what it is. And you know what?
Yeah.
Do your research and, I guess, if you want to jump on the bandwagon and play that game, that's fine. But, there's plenty of bandwagons to jump on. Go check these guys out tomorrow over at Ice Cream Show and tomorrow night. There's plenty of real bandwagons. So you don't have to, always do what's the most popular. Do what feels right to you and what resonates with you. So
yeah, appreciate it, my man. Appreciate it.
And on that note, I'm just going to say to everybody, make sure you check out all the links in the description below. All these guys are there. If you want to support the channel, that is there. That does really help. What really does fucking help, share that shit out. Just whatever, Reddit, It's a good one.
Share,
Do it.
clip it up, and play a clip on your.
Clip
you know,
it. You can clip whatever you like from this show. As Sean Ryan would say, I can't even do what he says, but just take what you want and just put it out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, people. Good night. God bless. Mind the bugs don't bite. I'm Alien Addict. Make sure you subscribe. Nipples. That's Sunday's show for you people. Magic nipples.